Chapter 138. Boom! 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 The melodious bells rang on the Lingshan mountain of Guang'an. It heralds the beginning of the celebration. Numerous monks from the foundation building period gathered together, standing on the square in front of the main palace, in groups of 3 and 5, chatting with each other. Most of the foundation building cultivators usually practice in their respective families, and the number of public appearances is not comparable to that of the chi refining cultivators. Therefore, this celebration of the completion of Lingrui city can be regarded as a rare gathering of the monks who build the foundation. As a new foundation building family, the Chen family is not well known among the many foundation building families in Guang'an Prefecture, but no one took the initiative to approach him and talk to the two of them. Brother Chen. Just as he was thinking that no one was talking, a call came from behind him. Back! A young figure appeared in front of Chen Daoxian. This person looks like he is in his 20s, with peach blossom eyes and a slightly frivolous smile on the corner of his mouth. Who is Zhou Xiliang, the son of Zhou Muqing? Brother Zhou. Chen Daoxian reacted immediately and congratulated Zhou Xiliang. Congratulations to Zhou Xiliang for his successful foundation building. The same joy. Zhou Xiliang's success in building a foundation surprised Chen Daoxian. But the last time I saw him, Zhou Xiliang was already at the 9th level of qi refining, and it was not too surprising that the foundation was successfully established now. Zhou Xiliang greeted Chen Daoxian and hurriedly greeted Chen Xian. Xiliang has seen Uncle Chen. Good. Chen Xianhe stroked his beard with a smile, and said, looking at your appearance, you must have come with Brother Zhou? Uncle Zhou is here too. Hearing this, Zhou Si nodded his head, my father is indeed here. Speaking of this, Zhou Xiliang's words flickered a bit. Chen Daoxian didn't care and said with a smile, in that case, let's meet up together. Zhou Muqing was very helpful to the Chen family back then. If it weren't for Zhou Muqing's influence, the Chen family would not have imagined that it would be so easy to take over the magic weapon market in Sangxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture. This time since we met, it is necessary to come forward and say hello. When Zhou Xiliang heard this, he hesitated for a while before nodding and saying, then I will bring the two of you there, please. Under the guidance of Zhou Xiliang, Chen Daoxian and Chen Xianhe met Zhou Muqing and the monks of the patrol fleet under his command. Chen Daoxian is quite familiar with these people, and has drunk a lot of wine with them. Uncle Zhou. Seeing Zhou Muqing, Chen Daoxian smiled and bowed his hands. Daoxian, seeing Chen Daoxian, the worry on Zhou Muqing's face quickly subsided, and he looked at him in surprise and said, have you established a foundation? Lucky. Chen Daoxian smiled and cupped his hands. Brother Zhou. Brother Chen. After seeing the ceremony with Chen Xianhe, Zhou Muqing continued, unexpectedly, in less than 4 years, you actually cultivated all the way from the 7th level of qi refining to the foundation building stage, and I am afraid that the Zifu will be promising in the future. Uncle Zhou is wrong. Chen Daoxian bowed his hands, Brother Xiliang is the dragon among men, and the Zifu can be expected in the future. Zhou Muqing felt great comfort when he heard Chen Daoxian praise his son. In his heart, the baby son's ability to build a foundation was indeed beyond his expectations. Originally, he thought that he would be satisfied if he could use resources to smash his son to the foundation building stage within 10 years. I didn't expect it to take just over 3 years. Zhou Xiliang actually took a foundation building pill by himself, secretly building foundation without his knowledge, and it was successful. Every time I think about it. While Zhou Mu was proud to be his son, he was also afraid. Although the success rate of foundation building Dan is 70% to 80%, once the foundation building fails, the Dantian Qi Si will be broken, and the consequences will be very serious. But luckily, Zhou Xiliang succeeded. Of course. Zhou Xiliang's aptitude Zhou Muqing knew in his heart, no accident, being able to build a foundation is the limit of his life. Z mansion or something, if there is no great chance, it is no different from a dream. Uncle Zhou, are you here also to celebrate the completion of Lingrui City? Chen Daoxian was quite surprised. It stands to reason that with the establishment of Lingzhou City, the Zhou family should not be furious, right? Why is there still time to send someone to celebrate? This is obviously not the Zhou family's way of doing things. Chen Xianhe on the side coughed when he heard the words. Chen Daoxian turned his head, but saw Chen Xianhe shaking his head at him. Brother Chen doesn't have to cover for me, Zhou Muqing sighed and smiled bitterly. I came this time to apologize to the Wu family on behalf of the Zhou family. Apologize to the Wu family? The more Chen Daoxian listened, the more confused he became. Obviously, he had been living on Shuanghu Island during this period of time, and something happened in Guang'an Prefecture that he didn't know about. Ugh! Zhou Muqing sighed, speaking of which, we are also unlucky. 2 months ago, the Wu family had a cargo ship full of second-order artifacts and spiritual ore to Guang'an Prefecture, but an accident happened on the way. What does it have to do with the Wu family's cargo ship carrying the magical instruments? Chen Daoxian frowned. Daoxian, you don't know, it's not just the cargo ships that transport the instruments, because the Wu family's goods are very valuable, so they sent a large number of monks to them. Just the Wu family's foundation building monks, there are 136 people. What? Hearing this, Chen Daoxian could no longer contain his surprise. More than 100 cultivators of the foundation establishment period died in Guang'an Mansion, and even their bodies could not be found. This kind of thing is too sensational. There are more than 100 foundation building cultivators. Even if the cultivator of Zifu personally takes action, whether they can win the other party is a matter of two things. Even if they are not the opponents of the Zifu cultivator, so many base-building cultivators have fled in the light of the light, so it's not impossible for all of them to escape, right? Although Zifu is strong, it is not strong enough to kill more than 100 foundation-building cultivators in seconds. At least Chen Daoxian and Zifu cultivator fought once. He knew very well that Zifu cultivator was not that strong. In particular, the Wu family was good at refining weapons, and their foundation-building monks must have spirit armor to protect themselves. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for the Wu family's foundation-building cultivator to escape, which was obviously not something ordinary cultivators of the Zifu could do. Could it be Jindan cultivator? Chen Daoxian was taken aback by his speculation. Impossible. But then, Chen Daoxian shook his head again. Not to mention that there are no Jindan cultivators in Guang'an Mansion. Even if Jindan cultivators from outside Sangzhou pass by Guang'an Mansion, it is impossible for them to attack a group of foundation-building cultivators for no reason. Isn't this giving the handle to Qianyuan Jianzong? This matter is really going to go up. It is impossible for Qianyuan Jianzong to find out. To know. Qianyuan Jianzong has a spell called Time Recall, and they want to escape their pursuit unless they use special means to disrupt the secret. Obviously, it is impossible for ordinary Jindan cultivators to have this ability. After thinking about it, Chen Daoxian couldn't come up with a result. But, what does this have to do with you, Uncle Zhou? Chen Daoxian was very puzzled. Hearing this, Zhou Xiliang on the side sighed and said helplessly, my father happened to be in charge of the safety of the route that the Wu family cultivators traveled on that day. Hear this. Chen Daoxian finally figured out the cause and effect of the matter. The Wu family lost more than 100 foundation-building cultivators, and lost a ship of magic tools and spiritual ore. And Zhou Muqing of the Zhou family happened to be in charge of the safety of the route that the Wu family sailed at that time. This incident has caused a lot of uproar in Guang'an Prefecture, and now my family, large and small, in Xiancheng, Guang'an Prefecture, is doubting my Zhou family's ability to protect the safety of the airline. When Zhou Muqing said this, he clenched his fists tightly. In fact, he also knew that it was fortunate that they were not present that day, otherwise it would have just added a few more bodies. A figure that the more than 100 foundation-building cultivators of the Wu family could not bear. What can the more than 20 foundation establishment monks on a mere spirit void battleship do? Things say so. But other family panics belong to them. Because all the other families are now suspecting that this was done by the Zhou family. Just because the Wu family is one of the main members of the Guang'an Immortal League. In order to retaliate against the Wu family, the Zhou family killed all the monks who transported goods in his family, killing the chickens and serving as an example. Forced the families to withdraw from the Guang'an Immortal League. Actually, as long as anyone with a brain thinks about this matter, they will know that it cannot be done by the Zhou family. Because of the existence of Qianyuan sword sect, it is impossible for the Zhou family to take such a big risk to do this. But the question is, if it's not the Zhou family, who has the strength and motivation to do this? At present, this incident has not been spread among the scattered cultivation, otherwise the impact will be even worse. The Zhou family's food looks so ugly, who would dare to go to the immortal city of Guang'an in the future? It's not that no one has thought about whether it will be directed and acted by the people of Guang'an Xianmeng. But on second thought, who would sacrifice the lives of more than 100 foundation establishment cultivators for acting? That was nearly a quarter of the foundation building cultivators in the Wu family. Because of this incident, the Wu family was completely devastated, and I am afraid that it will be difficult to restore the past glory in the future. Just among a few people talking, the celebration of Spirit Day City begins. On the square, Yang Linyuan, who was dressed in a gray Taoist robe, stepped on the auspicious clouds and flew up. Chen Daoxian knew that the auspicious cloud under his feet was not a real auspicious cloud, but a special flying instrument. But at this moment, when it is displayed in front of everyone, it reflects the word Xianfeng Dougu incisively and vividly. Really? Everyone was attracted by Yang Ancestor, and they all quieted down. Thank you, fellow Taoists, for coming to the celebration of the inauguration of my Spirit Day Immortal City, today. Above the auspicious clouds, Yang Linyuan smiled and talked eloquently. Hopefully, in the future, we can work together to make Lingrui City even more prosperous. Just finished speaking. Yang Linyuan was about to leave, but unexpectedly, a voice suddenly sounded at this moment. Wait everyone. The person who spoke was an old man with a complete foundation. The old man had a broad face and a broad nose, a solemn face, and a look of no anger and self-righteousness. Coupled with his tall and straight figure, it made people look quite oppressive. Seeing the old man, Yang Linyuan sighed and said through a voice transmission, Brother Wu, how about we discuss this matter later? I, Yang, hereby swear that I will definitely get justice for the more than 100 cultivators of your Wu family, heard. Wu Guangyi shook his head, Brother Yang, my Wu family wants this justice today. As he said that, his face was tragic, otherwise, the hearts of my Wu family will be completely dissipated. Chapter 139. Seeing the figure of the old man, all the monks who knew the inside story stopped. Wu Guangyi watched everyone stop, bowed his hands to everyone, and said, Thank you, fellow Taoists, for your righteousness. I, Mr. Wu, hereby thank you all, talking. Wu Guangyi bowed his hands to all the monks present. At this time, a cultivator off the field said, Don't worry, fellow Taoist Wu, my Guang'an mansion cultivator has not been cowardly to this level, talking room. The rough-faced late-stage foundation building cultivator had an indifferent expression. Obviously, this was a foundation building loose cultivator. Thank you, fellow Taoist Lei, for your righteous words. Wu Guangyi clearly recognized the loose cultivator who was speaking and cupped his hands. Everyone, 2 months ago, 136 members of my Wu family transported a ship of second-order magic tools and spiritual ore to the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture, but something unexpected happened on the way. I would like to ask everyone present, how could the more than 100 foundation building cultivators with spirit armors die on the way to Guang'an Mansion? In our Guang'an Prefecture, who can have this strength? The guts? Wu Guangji's voice was deafening, and the whole person was furious. Zhou Muqing's chest heaved up and down when he heard this. But he knew that at this moment, whether it was for the family or himself, he had to stand up. Brother Wu, if you have something to say, please say it clearly, you don't have to point at Sang and scold why. Okay. Wu Guangyi shouted, I suspect your Zhou family. All this is done by your Zhou family. He stood in the air, pointed his hand directly at Zhou Muqing's nose, and said loudly. This moment. The hearts of all the cultivators present twitched. The Wu family is the pillar family of the Guang'an Immortal League, and the other is the representative of the Zhou family, the overlord of Guang'an Prefecture. Brother Wu, do you know what you are talking about? Zhou Muqing's mood suddenly calmed down at this moment, staring at the other side intently. Of course I know what I'm talking about. Wu Guangyi shouted, Brother Yang told me, let me bear it, and the strength of my Wu family also told me, let me bear it. But I am the patriarch of the tens of thousands of monks in the Wu family. More than 100 cultivators of my Wu family died inexplicably. I can't bear this tone, and my Wu family's tens of thousands of cultivators can't bear it. Wu Guangyi, you and I were considered to have been on the Zhenangguan battlefield together back then, you should know who I am. Would you believe me if I told you that this was not my Zhou family's doing? Zhou Muqing said seriously. Heard. Wu Guangyi's eyes flickered, obviously, he was extremely restless at the moment. Okay. Wu Guangyi nodded, I'll believe what you said for the time being, then tell me, when you were the deacon of the Wu family patrol fleet, why did more than 100 cultivators in my Wu family die? Not only did you not rescue them, but you didn't even know it at all. Hearing this, Zhou Muqing was completely speechless. No matter what happened, his dereliction of duty was inescapable. Even if the matter is resolved, his status in the Zhou family will plummet in the future. Brother Wu, I'm sorry. Zhou Muqing bowed his hands, and the whole person seemed to have aged a bit. Seeing the appearance of this old brother who was in the same defense zone with him back then, Wu Guangyi opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. Half an hour. Wu Guangyi took a deep breath and said with red eyes, It's useless for you to apologize to me, you are not qualified, I want Zhou Mubai to apologize. I want Zhou Mubai to swear that this is not the Zhou family's actions. Boom. This sentence immediately caused an uproar at the scene. Who is Zhou Mubai? Guang'an Sword Immortal, Zifu Tianjiao Lis Tianjiao, Zhou family young patriarch. That is the pride of the entire Zhou family. Wu Guangyi asked Zhou Mubai to apologize to the Wu family, which undoubtedly stepped on the Zhou family's face. Not only that, Wu Guangyi even made Zhou Mubai swear. You must know that the oath in the mouth of the monk generally refers to the oath of the Great Way. This kind of oath cannot be made indiscriminately, and a little mistake will inevitably affect the road. Therefore, basically not many monks are willing to take this oath. Old Ghost Wu, don't deceive people too much. Hearing this, Zhou Muqing was also angry, and made Zhou Mubai swear that if he dared to go back and say this, the Zhou family would tear him alive. I deceived your Zhou family today, what's wrong? I don't believe it, in front of thousands of fellow practitioners on the court today, your Zhou family can silence so many of us. Zhou Muqing, Guang'an Mansion is the Guang'an Mansion of Qianyuan Sword Sect, not your Zhou families. Wu Guangyi glared angrily. You! Zhou Muqing was so angry that he was speechless when he heard these words of heart-punching. He said in a low voice, What do you want, say something. I said, let Zhou Mubai apologize and swear that this is not the Zhou family's doing. Wu Guangyi did not give in. Old Ghost Wu, you know, this is impossible. Zhou Muqing calmed down again, why don't you be like this, you and I bet once. Bet what? Wu Guangyi raised his brows and said. Bet my life. Zhou Muqing looked at the other party, you and I are both cultivators, since we can't agree, let's judge right or wrong based on strength. If I lose, my life will be given to you, and your Wu family will never mention this again. Father. Zhou Xiliang, who was beside him, became anxious when he heard this. Zhou Muqing glanced at his son dotingly, and immediately resolutely said, If I win, your Wu family must not mention this again in the future. Hear this. Wu Guangyi looked directly at the other party and said, Are you sure you want to bet your life and death with me? Brother Wu, Zhou Muqing cupped his hands, you are the head of the Wu clan, I am a member of the Zhou clan, you and I are both family members, there is no right or wrong, if there is a chance in the next life, Zhenangguan will fight again. Okay. Wu Guangyi took a deep breath and nodded, if there is a chance in the next life, we must fight again. In fact, Wu Guangyi already faintly believed in his heart at this moment that this matter was not done by the Zhou family. But the people of the Wu family didn't believe it, and the comrades in Guang'an didn't believe it. He is the head of the Wu family, he must unite the hearts of the people, and he must maintain the face of the Wu family in front of his colleagues in Guang'an. Because this is the last thing the Wu family has. Losing these, just as Wu Guangyi said, the family's heart will be scattered. To get these, Zhou Mabai's apology and swearing are naturally the best. But if not, the life of a Zhou family base-building cultivator is not bad. Seeing the two make a life-and-death pact. Those present knew that this was probably the end of the matter. It doesn't matter if this is what the Zhou family did or not. The life of a Zhou family foundation-building cultivator was the Zhou family's biggest concession to the Guang'an mansion comrades. See this scene. Yang Linyuan sighed. Regardless of the outcome of this matter, the confrontation between the Guang'an Xianmeng and the Zhou family will be irreversible. To be honest. In the depths of Yang Linyuan's heart at this moment, he faintly regretted the creation of Guang'an Xianmeng. Because of this alliance, it may cause a turmoil that will bring disaster to the entire Guang'an prefecture. A troubled autumn. Yang Linyuan sighed. High in the air. Zhou Mucheng and Wu Guangyi confronted each other in the air. All around, tens of thousands of Guang'an Manor's foundation-building cultivators watched from the sky. Unexpectedly, today you and I will be able to fight once in front of our colleagues in Guang'an. Zhou Mucheng looked at the monks around and laughed in a hoarse voice. It's really unexpected. Wu Guangyi nodded. I didn't even expect that 50 years ago, you were on the 7th floor of the foundation building. 50 years later, you are still on the 7th floor of the foundation building. Why, the more you live, the more you go back. Zhou Mucheng also relaxed at the moment, shrugged and said, it would be good to be able to escape with one life back then, but there is no cost at all. Hear this. Wu Guangyi's voice was low. Actually, I know that this matter is not your Zhou family's actions, but I have no choice, brother Zhou, sorry, heard. Zhou Mucheng smiled, it's not necessary, you and I are each family, no need to apologize. With that said, he finally glanced at his son Zhou Xiliang and said, it's up to you to live or die, come on. Okay. Wu Guangyi's words fell. A body of spirit armor appeared. Obviously, in the face of Zhou Mucheng, a 7-layer foundation-building cultivator, even though his cultivation was 3 layers higher, he did not dare to be careless. Opposite. Zhou Mucheng also appeared in spirit armor. The streamlined spirit armor wraps the figures of the two, looking like steel warriors. Next moment. The two sword lights collided. Chen Daoxian looked at Zhou Xiliang beside him, anxious like an ant on a hot pot, and comforted, don't worry, Uncle Zhou has spirit armor on his body, even if he loses, his life will not be in danger. Relief to hear this. Zhou Xiliang is like a drowning person grabbing the last straw. He kept repeating in his mouth, yes, yes, my father has a spirit armor to protect himself, and Mr. Wu can't do anything with him. Saying that, the whole person could not help but relax. Actually, Chen Daoxian didn't tell him, what Zhou Mucheng said just now was that as long as he lost, he would voluntarily lead to death. It is not easy for a monk of the same rank to kill a monk who is wearing spirit armor and flees for his life. But neither side runs away, and if they keep fighting, one side will always lose. For example, the real essence is exhausted. Just as Chen Daoxian expected. The battle between the two in the sky is getting more and more intense. Various second-order sword tactics were displayed, shrouding a radius of several kilometers in a sword light. Time flies by little by little. Blink of an eye. An hour has passed. Since both sides gave up their defenses and fought for their lives, the consumption of true qi was extremely terrifying. That is to say, the defensive power of the second-order high-grade spirit armor is very exaggerated. Zifu cultivator would have to waste a little bit of strength if he wanted to break open. For monks of the same rank, except for sword cultivators, few people can break the defense of second-rank high-grade spirit armor. Neither side could break through the other's defenses. the only thing left is to consume each other's true essence. To be frank, in Chen Daoxuan's eyes, a fight of this level has no merit. In his eyes, the level of kendo on both sides was clumsy and ridiculous. But in the eyes of the many foundation-building cultivators present, the strength of these two is almost the top level among the foundation-building cultivators. Whether it is defense or attack, they have almost touched the ceiling of the base-building cultivator. Another half-hour passed. Under the high-intensity consumption, Zhou Muqing's real yuan is not as good as Wu Guangyi after all, and it begins to show a downward trend. Brother Zhou, you are defeated. The words fall. Wu Guangyi's sword beam finally broke through Zhou Muqing's spirit armor. Because of Zhou Muqing, there is no real energy to maintain the consumption of spirit armor. Hey. Looking at the flying sword inserted into his chest, Zhou Muqing's face paled and he laughed. Old Ghost Wu, you have won. Chapter 140. Pity. Chen Xianhe shook his head. What a pity. Chen Daoxian looked at Chen Xianhe in confusion. Heard. Chen Xianhe sighed, I feel sorry for Brother Zhou. This shouldn't be the work of the Zhou family, but in order to calm the matter and buy time to investigate the matter, the Zhou family had to sacrifice Brother Zhou. Chen Daoxian frowned slightly. Can't the Zhou family report to Chenyuan Jianzong? Chen Xianhe shook his head and did not speak. At the same time, standing beside Yang Linyuan, Yang Gongwan asked the exact same question as Chen Daoxian. Grandfather, why didn't the Zhou family and the Wu family report this to the Chenyuan sword sect? Yang Gongwan looked at Yang Linyuan in confusion. Who knows that Yang Linyuan's expression froze slightly when he heard the words Chenyuan Jianzong. A long time. He sighed, it's not impossible, but unwilling. Don't want to. That's right, Yang Linyuan nodded. Before the chaos of Xinjue, the Zhou family was the Jindan family, although after the chaos of Xinjue and the Battle of Zenangwan, the vitality of the Zhou family was greatly damaged. But with the rise of Zhou Mubai, the Zhou family has a strength and prestige comparable to the peak of that year. Plus, their Zhou family wants to be the #1 family in Sangzhou. The first family in Sangzhou? Yang Gongwan said in surprise, why does the Zhou family? Before she finished speaking, she thought of Zhou Mubai and of Zhou Laozu, whose Zhou family was a step away from Jindan. Silent. At this moment, Yang Gongwan vaguely understood why the Zhou family did this. The life of a derelict foundation-building clan quelled the anger of the major families in Guang'an, in exchange for the Zhou family's time to investigate the matter. In the Zhou family's view, it's worth it. Otherwise, once this matter hits the Chenyuan sword sect, the Zhou family will not only lose face in front of their colleagues in Guang'an, but will also leave an image of incompetence for the entire Zhangzhou colleagues. Until then, even if there is another Jindan cultivator from the Zhou family, in the eyes of outsiders, it is no different from the current Yi family. How can a family that can't even settle the trivial matters in Guang'an Mansion become the first family in Zhangzhou? The Zhou family needs time now to restore their lost face. At this point, Chen Xianhe understood it, and Yang Linyuan also understood it. Even Zhou Muqing had this preparation in his heart before he came here. Then why didn't the Wu family report to Chenyuan Jianzong? Yang Gongwan looked at her grandfather again. Yang Linyuan said quietly, compared to the Zhou family, the more than 100 foundation-building cultivators lost by the Wu family have been completely lost. Rather than revenge, what they need is to think about the present and the future. Considering the present and the future, Yang Gongwan was even more confused when she heard this. Before the chaos of Divine Zhu, the Wu family, like my Yang family, was a big family with nearly 10 cultivators of the Zifu. Over the years, the Gods' Rebellion and the Battle of Zenangwan, the Wu family has declined step by step until now. What they lost was not only their strength, but also the shaky hearts of the clan, especially the fact that the Wu family lost more than 100 foundation-building cultivators this time, which was the last straw that overwhelmed the hearts of the Wu family. Compared with investigating the truth, Wu Guangyi's first thing to do is to unite people's hearts. Yang Linyuan's eyes were deep, otherwise, the hearts of the people will be scattered, and the family will be finished. Gather the hearts of the people. In this regard, Yang Gongwan felt quite a bit. Because once the Yang family, like the Wu family, declined step by step. As the strength of the family declines, there are also people who gradually dissipate. In this situation, it was not until Yang Linyuan broke through the Purple Mansion and formed the Guang'an Immortal League that the Yang family regained their confidence. Sometimes faith is not worth mentioning, but sometimes it is too important. Yang Linyuan didn't know that Yang Gongwan thought so much for a while, and continued, as for the future. Wu Guangyi knew that what he wanted was to unite the hearts of the clan, not to offend the Zhou family completely. After all, there are still tens of thousands of monks in the Wu family, and they will continue the family in Guang'an Mansion in the future. If he ignored the report to Qianyuan sword sect, he would have slapped the Zhou family severely in front of his colleagues in Guang'an and even the whole of Zhangzhou. No matter how things end, the Zhou and Wu families will have an endless relationship from now on. Will the Wu family and the Zhou family live forever? Hear this. Yang Gongwan suddenly became enlightened. For a cultivation force, strength is fundamental, but reputation and face are also very important. Even something second only to strength. The consequences of losing your reputation. Just look at the fate of the Yi family in Zhangzhou. Not to mention, in Wanxinghai, in Zhangzhou, and even in Guang'an Prefecture, how many are actually selling Yi family accounts? The Yi family cultivators were ridiculed when they walked outside. Although the Zhangzhou Yi family is known as the #1 family in Zhangzhou, it is only barely capable of it, but in terms of reputation, no family will recognize them. Now the Zhou and Wu families all want this face, and Zhou Mucheng, who is dereliction of duty, is the victim of sacrifice. People talking. A new change has taken place on the field. Just as Zhou Mucheng was slaughtered by the neck, Zhou Mucheng's son Zhou Xiliang rushed forward regardless. The old thief of the Wu family, you dare to touch my father. Liang don't. Zhou Mucheng blushed when he saw Zhou Xiliang's actions, and said in shock. Zhou Xiliang didn't care about his seriously injured father's dissuasion, his eyes were red, and with a flash of light, he rushed towards Wu Guangyi. After all, not everyone is the same as Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai, who can fight beyond the ranks. Zhou Xiliang, a cultivator who has just established a foundation, is no match for Wu Guangyi, a cultivator who has completed foundation establishment. Roll. I saw a flash of sword light. Wu Guangyi's flying sword appeared in front of Zhou Xiliang. Ugh, see this scene. Chen Daoxian sighed. Originally, this matter was the choice of the Zhou family, the choice of Zhou Mucheng, and Chen Daoxian had neither the right nor the intention to intervene. But at the moment, Zhou Xiliang was about to fall in front of him. Chen Daoxian had to ask. Next moment, a star came first, and Wu Guangyi's flying sword was slashed and flew out. Immediately after, Chen Daoxian escaped and stood in front of Zhou Xiliang. He cupped his hands and said, "Fellow Daoist, Wu is a bit too vicious to kill the killer so painfully. Who are you? Dare to interfere in my Wu family's affairs?" Wu Guangyi's face suddenly darkened. Now, his heart had already set off a stormy sea, that star, if he was not wrong. Jian Shou. It's Jian Shou. The people present were not uninformed. Someone immediately recognized Chen Daoxuan's method. Boom! This sentence immediately caused an uproar on the field. Sword repair. In addition to Zhou Mubai, Guang'an Mansion had a second sword cultivator. Shuanghu Island Chen family, Chen Daoxian. Chen Daoxian bowed his hands and said indifferently, "I have no intention of interfering in the Wu family's affairs, but you can't move." Chen Daoxian pointed at Zhou Xiliang. Do not know why. Wu Guangyi breathed a sigh of relief after hearing that Chen Daoxian did not intend to interfere in his Wu family affairs. After all, the prestige of Jianqiu is too great in Wanxinghai and even in Xianyun continent. If Chen Daoxian insisted on intervening today, The Wu family really couldn't close. Chapter 141. Sword Repair. Hearing the exclamations from the base-building cultivators present, Yang Gongwan only felt that her brain had suffered a heavy blow, she was dizzy, and she couldn't recover for a long time. Year after year, what she painstakingly pursued was actually accomplished by a small family cultivator who she never really valued. This moment, an unprecedented sense of frustration overwhelmed her. She finally understood that what her grandfather had always told him was that the big family came from the small family step by step. There are not many big families, and they are born big families. She looked at the much-anticipated Chen Daoxian, and seemed to see the rise of a big family from that radiant figure. Sword Repair. If Chen Daoxian does not fall in the future, the Chen family will inevitably rise and become unstoppable. This point, Yang Gongwan, who knew the horror of sword cultivators, couldn't be more clear. Brother Zhou, let's go. Chen Daoxian glanced at Zhou Xiliang, whose emotions were gradually losing control, and a thunderous voice exploded in his ear. Surprised by this explosion, Zhou Xiliang regained his consciousness a little, and he looked at Chen Daoxian with prayers in his eyes. Brother Chen, help me once, please, save my father. Hear this. Chen Daoxian was silent. After a long time, he sighed, Brother Zhou, haven't you seen it? It's not that I don't save Uncle Zhou, but this decision, both your Zhou family's decision and your father's own choice. Chen Daoxian didn't know what the Zhou family was thinking. But in his opinion, although Zhou Muqing was wrong, he was not guilty of death. The Zhou family was a little too harsh on the clan by doing this. At least, the Chen family under the control of Chen Daoxian could not make such a cold decision. From a profit point of view, this move by the Zhou family undoubtedly paid the least price and preserved the reputation of the Zhou family. Once the Zhou family thoroughly investigates the matter, not only can it give justice to the Zhou family, but it can also establish the absolute prestige of the Zhou family in front of the millions of monks in Guangnan Prefecture. It even laid the foundation for the Zhou family to become the first family in Sangzhou in the future. And what their Zhou family lost was a trivial foundation-building late-stage cultivator who had little longevity. Even other members of the Zhou family would not feel that the family was cold. After all, Zhou Muqing's dereliction of duty is the result of Zhou Muqing's dereliction of duty. If not, with the strength of the Zhou family, it will definitely not fall into the dilemma that it is now. No. I don't believe it. Zhou Xiliang kept shaking his head, it's impossible for the family to give up my father. My Zhou family has been standing in Guangnan Mansion for more than 1,000 years, what storms have not experienced? Back then, during the chaos of divine judgment, Sangzhou Jindan cultivators died so many battles, and so many families were destroyed, and my Zhou family survived. With the death of more than 100 foundation-building cultivators this time, my Zhou family will give up their clan. I don't believe it. I don't believe anything. Zhou Xiliang said, his eyes were red, his expression seemed to be eating people. Seeing him like this, Chen Daoxian didn't know how to comfort him. Only silence. Wu, father, what are you doing? Zhou Xiliang turned his head with difficulty, and saw Zhou Muqing, who was covered in blood, resting his right palm on Zhou Xiliang's back. On the palm of his hand, one after another spell pattern circulates. Chen Daoxian recognized at a glance that it was the technique of banning Dantian Qi Si. Zhou Muqing broke a gap in his left chest spiritual armor, and from the gap, he could even faintly see his beating heart. This kind of injury, on ordinary people, would have died long ago. But Zhou Muqing, as a cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment, still insisted on forcibly mustering the few remaining sips of true essence, and under the sneak attack, Zhou Xiliang's Dantian was temporarily imprisoned. Zhou Muqing ignored his son's surprised eyes, turned to look at Chen Daoxian, and bowed to him tremblingly, nephew, uncle, thanks. Uncle Zhou, please get up. Chen Daoxian took a volume of real essence and brought Zhou Xiliang, whose Dantian was imprisoned and temporarily lost control of real essence, to his flying sword. On the other hand, he supported Zhou Muqing's fallen body with his hands. Zhou Muqing immediately looked at his own flesh and blood, with a hint of doting in his eyes, and said, "Si Liang, from now on, because my father is not in this world, you need to ask your brother Chen more for advice. Don't be the same as before, messing around with all those hooligans all day long, remember?" Zhou Xiliang was already crying, shaking his head with red eyes. "Father, no, no." Tears kept rolling down Zhou Xiliang's cheeks, and he said hoarsely, "We are the Zhou family, the Wu family dare not do anything to us, father, run away." "Run away, heard." Zhou Muqing smiled miserably. "Back then, when I was at Jinan Pass, I escaped, and since then, I have sworn that in this life, Zhou Muqing, will never run away again." "Say it." Zhou Muqing stopped looking at his son, turned to look at Wu Guangyi, and said loudly, "Old Ghost Wu, I lost, according to the agreement, my life is yours." "Who knows to hear this?" Wu Guangyi glanced at Chen Daoxian, and there was a deep fear in his eyes. "Cough. Don't worry, this is my own choice, and it has nothing to do with anyone else." Seeing Wu Guangyi's eyes, Zhou Muqing immediately knew what the other party was thinking. He coughed blood and laughed wantonly. "Okay." Wu Guangyi nodded heavily. "After today, my Wu family will no longer mention your Zhou family's interception of my Wu family members, but your Zhou family must give us an explanation as soon as possible." "Rest assured." Zhou Muqing nodded, "Even if you don't talk about this matter, my Zhou family will give you an explanation to the Wu family and millions of colleagues in Guang'an. In the 1,000 years since my Zhou family established the immortal city of Guang'an Mansion, apart from the chaos of the gods of the past, there has never been a second such serious killing incident. My Zhou family will definitely give everyone a satisfactory explanation for this matter." These words, Zhou Muqing said decisively. After he finished speaking, he closed his eyes, ready to reverse his true essence and cut off his heart. But next second, however, he found that his true essence was imprisoned. No, to be precise, his entire body was imprisoned. "Who?" Zhou Muqing opened his eyes in horror. Although he is almost exhausted at this moment, he is a late foundation building cultivator after all. If he can achieve this level, it may be difficult for a Zifu cultivator to do it. Could it be Cultivator Jin Dan? Zhou Muqing was taken aback by his thought. At this time, a rather familiar voice entered everyone's ears. "Clan brother, why is this?" Above Lingrui City, in the air dozens of miles away from Lingshan Mountain, a white figure walked towards everyone in the air step by step. This white figure walked very slowly, but every step seemed to be stepping in the hearts of everyone. Under his feet, the air burst into little ripples, like the legendary lotus growing every step of the way. Guang'an's sword immortal Zhou Mubai. Seeing the person coming, Yang Linyuan sucked in a breath. On the third floor of the purple mansion, how did his cultivation level rise so fast? Yang Linyuan murmured. But at the moment, no one was paying attention to his words anymore, and everyone's minds were placed on the white figure who was walking towards everyone step by step. Chapter 142. The Hinterland of Limba Island. A fourth-order spiritual vein was completely enveloped by a fifth-order mountain protection formation. On the spiritual veins, Lingshan mountains stand in it. On each Lingshan, there is a palace, immortal palace looming. According to legend, this fifth-order mountain protection formation was created by the Zhou family, who made great contributions to Qianyuan Jianzong thousands of years ago, and asked a Yuanying Zhenjuan of Qianyuan Jianzong to set it up by himself. This is different from the immortal city of Guang'an Mansion on the coast. This is the home of the Zhou family. Except for the monks of the Zhou family, outsiders are not allowed to enter without invitation. Among the mountains, there is the most towering Lingshan Immortal Palace. A monk with silver hair and a youthful face stood on the high platform of the palace, overlooking the faint Lingshan group under his feet. Suddenly, he sighed, "Mubai is gone. Hear this." A spectator who pushed in the door paused slightly. His face was a little ugly, and he lowered his head to admit his mistake. "Patriarch, this subordinate is incompetent, and I failed to stop him. Jianxiu on the third floor of the Z mansion insisted on leaving, not to mention you, even if the old man made his own shot, he couldn't stop him. The silver-haired youth shook his head, third elder, it's not your fault. Mu Bai, with his perseverance, his way. In this matter, it may not be clear who is right and who is wrong. But, is it worth it for a late foundation building cultivator who made a big mistake? The three elders were very puzzled. Heard. The ancestor of the Zhou family smiled. In your eyes, Ma Cheng is the one who made a big mistake, but in Mu Bai's eyes, he is my Zhou clan, that's all. Mu Bai would never give up any Zhou clan, even if giving up him was the best choice. Above Lingrui City. Before the floating mountain. Zhou Mubai grew lotus under his feet and walked in the air. As he walked towards the crowd step by step, the cultivator present felt that the air around him became stagnant. To know. There are tens of thousands of monks who came to participate in the celebration of Lingrui City today. So many cultivators were actually suppressed by Zhou Mubai's aura. Visible. The name of Sword Immortal is not false. Chen Daoxian looked at Zhou Mubai who was walking towards him step by step, and felt as if his whole body was in a quagmire. All the time. He felt that he had built the foundation of the strongest swordsmanship. Even if he was not Zhou Mubai's opponent, he was at least as good as him. But obviously, he overestimated himself, or in other words, underestimated Zhou Mubai. Only by standing in front of Zhou Mubai in person did Chen Daoxian feel how much pressure he was under. Compared with Zhou Mubai, the patriarch of the Clear Water Monkey clan he fought with before was no different from a child. Dantian gas is domestic. The flickering starlight floating in the sky above the sea of air, stimulated by Zhou Mubai's aura, gradually stabilized. Call. As the starlight became brighter and brighter, the pressure on Chen Daoxian's body became less and less. With a slight movement, he found that he was actually able to move. Obviously. Zhou Mubai, who was in the distance, also noticed this scene, and his eyes burst with light. It's like encountering a big happy event. Zhou Mubai's thoughts moved, and he pulled the momentum of his whole body away from everyone, and then pressed towards Chen Daoxian a little bit. This time, Chen Daoxian suddenly felt that the burden he had just lifted was on his shoulders again, and this time, he was under even more pressure. He knew that Zhou Mubai intended to weigh his fineness. Although Chen Daoxian has not practiced for a long time, as a sword cultivator, he is just like the sword cultivators in the world, he would rather not bend. At this moment, Zhou Mubai's pressure stimulated him instead. Dantian is full of energy, and Jian Yuan is running wildly. Coupled with the increase in the tangible sword intent above the air sea, no matter how much pressure Zhou Mubai exerts. Chen Daoxian's 3 feet in front of him were firmly controlled by him, and he was not affected by Zhou Mubai in the slightest. You become heard. Chen Daoxian only felt that the pressure around him receded like a tide. He looked at Zhou Mubai, nodded and said, I got lucky. Well. Zhou Mubai laughed wantonly, today is a big bait. Done. Zhou Mubai looked at Zhou Mucheng, and the smile on his face subsided. Looking at Zhou Mucheng's blood-soaked appearance, Zhou Mubai shook his head and said, Brother, why is this so, heard? Zhou Mucheng smiled miserably, young patriarch, this must be the case. If not, my Zhou family will not be able to comfort the hearts of the Wu family. Otherwise, I will not be able to gain the trust of millions of people in Guang'an Prefecture. The heart of the Wu family. Gain the trust of the Guang'an people. Zhou Mubai raised his brows, what's so difficult about this? Say it. Zhou Mubai turned his head and looked at Wu Guangyi, the head of the Wu family opposite. Wu Guangyi saw Zhou Mubai's eyes looking towards him, only to feel a terrifying pressure pressing on him, making it extremely difficult for him to open his mouth. Beside him, the flying sword that had been slashed by Chen Daoxian, was even more frightened by Zhou Mubai's sword intent, and let out bursts of whining. A long time. Wu Guangyi only felt his whole body light up, and he knew that it was Zhou Mubai who took back his momentum. Fellow Daoist Wu, what is your request from the Wu family? In front of so many colleagues from Guang'an, just say it. Zhou Mubai said indifferently. Okay. Wu Guangyi nodded, plucked up his courage and said, I said before, as long as you Zhou Mubai apologize to my Wu family for the Zhou family and swear that this is not your Zhou family's doing, I will believe you. Do you dare? Who knows? When Zhou Mubai heard this, he smiled lightly, turned to look at Zhou Mucheng, and said, just because of this, the clan brother will give his life to protect each other? Could it be that in the eyes of the clan brother, my face, Zhou Mubai, is more precious than the life of the clan brother? Hearing this, Zhou Mucheng was silent. He didn't wait for Zhou Mucheng to answer. Zhou Mubai looked around at the Guang'an mansion who were present, and said loudly, my Zhou family did not protect the safety of the Wu family's route to the immortal city of Guang'an mansion, this is my Zhou family's negligence. On behalf of the Zhou family, I, Zhou Mubai, apologize to the 136 members of your Wu family who lost their lives. Say it. Zhou Mubai bowed deeply and stood up with 3 breaths. Seeing this scene, everyone felt Zhou Mubai in their hearts and respected the Zhou family. As for the oath you said. Zhou Mubai paused slightly. The hearts of everyone present were raised. As long as Zhou Mubai dared to swear in public, it was basically 100% certain that this matter was definitely not the work of the Zhou family. Because it is impossible for the Zhou family to take Zhou Mubai's path as a bet in order to attack the mere Guang'an Immortal League. This is for the Zhou family. Undoubtedly, it will ruin the future and hope of the family, and it is an extremely stupid act. I, Zhou Mubai, hereby swear that if the 136 foundation building cultivators of your Wu family are harmed by my Zhou family, then I, Zhou Mubai, will not be able to make any further progress in swordsmanship in this life. This oath, heaven and earth can learn. Boom boom boom. As this oath was established, a dull thunder sounded faintly in the sky. Everyone vaguely felt something. Around Zhou Mubai, there was an indescribable flow of energy, which was exactly the effect of making the Great Tao Oath. Chen Daoxian is very familiar with this effect. Because Luo Xiuyuan, the head of the Merman clan, made such an oath in front of him. Seeing this scene, everyone let go of their doubts about the Zhou family. This is definitely not the Zhou family's doing. Fellow Daoist Wu, how is it? Wu Guangyi was speechless when he heard this. Half an hour. He just bowed his hands and said, Senior Zhou behaves like this, only to teach the younger generation to admire, my Wu family, I have nothing to say. Fellow Daoist Wu, don't worry, my Zhou family will give you a satisfactory answer to the Wu family and the Guang'an mansion. Hear this. Wu Guangyi's eyes were slightly red, he bowed and choked, so, please. Chapter 143. Above Lingshan. Yang Linyuan looked at Zhou Mubai who was surrounded by the center of the cultivators like the stars and Gongyue, and his heart was filled with emotion. Seeing that Zhou Mubai was alone, with a few words, he easily controlled the audience on the Guang'an Immortal Alliance's site. Thinking of this, Yang Linyuan's eyes showed a touch of bitterness. It was only Zhou Mubai alone. It suppressed the momentum of everyone in the Guang'an Immortal League. Isn't it ridiculous that the Guang'an Immortal League still wants to compete with the Zhou family? Shook his head. Yang Linyuan seemed to have found something, turned to look at Yang Gongwan beside him, and asked, where's fellow Daoist Zhao? The Zhao Daoyu in his mouth is Zhao Yuanhuan, the head of the Zhao family, one of the 3 pillar families of the Guang'an Xianmeng. I don't know. Yang Gongwan was also a little surprised. Just now, she had been focusing on Chen Daoxian, Zhou Mubai and others, but Yang Gongwan didn't pay attention to the whereabouts of the Zhao family leader. On the field, Zhou Mubai took out a second-order elixir for the treatment of injuries and fed it into Zhou Muqing's mouth. Then he pointed to Zhou Siliang's Dantian beside Chen Daoxian, and released his Dantian imprisonment. Regain control of your true essence. Zhou Siliang hurriedly flew in front of Zhou Muqing and said excitedly, Father, are you all right? After taking the elixir, Zhou Muqing's face looked much better, he shook his head at Zhou Siliang and said, Dad is fine. Subsequently, He bowed his hands to Zhou Mubai again and said, "Young patriarch, Mu Cheng made such a big mistake, and it also involved the young patriarch making the great Tao oath for me, Mu Cheng, I feel ashamed, heard." Zhou Mubai shook his head and said, "Although the clan brother has committed dereliction of duty, his sin will not lead to death. What's more, fortunately, the clan brother didn't find out that the Wu family cultivator was attacked that day, otherwise, you and the clansmen on the battleship would probably be more fortunate and less fortunate. Anyway, thank you young patriarch, from now on. In the future, don't forget your identity as a member of the Zhou family, which is the best reward for me." Zhou Mubai raised his hand and interrupted Zhou Muqing's words. Zhou Muqing was moved and choked up a little. On the side, Zhou Xiliang even knelt down to Zhou Mubai and said, "Thank you young patriarch for saving my father's life. Get up." Looking at the Sitsi generation in front of him, Zhou Mubai waved his hand slightly, and the other party involuntarily stood up. "Finish talking with the Zhou family." Zhou Mubai looked at Chen Daoxian on the side and said, "Brother Chen, congratulations. In the future, I will have another sword cultivator in Guang'an House." Zhou Mubai still didn't say a word. It was the sword cultivator who forged the foundation of the strongest sword cultivator. However, Zhou Mubai also knew the truth of Mu Xiuyulin, and deliberately kept a secret for Chen Daoxian, but did not explain his details in public. Anyway, everyone is not a sword cultivator. Everyone's understanding of Jianqiu only stops at his superior combat power. Not only is he invincible at the same level, but he can even fight beyond the level. As for how to fight beyond the ranks, what is the difference between Jianqiu and Jianqiu? The cultivators are not very clear. Actually, if it wasn't for Chen Daoxian who obtained Zhou Mubai's swordsmanship jade slip, he would not have known that there was actually a road to the strongest swordsmanship among swordsmen. I don't even know that sword intent has a hierarchy. It can be seen from this. There is a difference between heritage and no heritage. If Chen Daoxian was born in Chenyuan Jianzong, his achievements would definitely be much higher than now. Of course, in the Chenyuan sword sect, there are more constraints in all aspects than now. It was a fluke. Chen Daoxian said modestly. Zhou Mubai believed it. Although he did not embark on the path of the strongest sword cultivator, he could imagine how violent the true qi that had been tempered once would be when it was transformed into true essence. The reason why he didn't set foot on this road at the beginning was because his talent was slightly inferior, and his kendo talent was not enough for him to understand the sword intent during the qi refining period. On the other hand, it was also Zhou Mubai who had no confidence that the foundation would be successful. Because he knew that this kind of qi refining period would become the evildoer of the sword cultivator. To a certain extent, it could be said that God would not tolerate it. If you want to build a foundation successfully, the right time, place and people are indispensable. Even so, it is a life and death situation. Therefore, this kind of sword cultivator who understands the meaning of the sword during the period of qi refining is called the legendary sword cultivator. Just because it's rare. A few people talking. An old man wearing a light blue Taoist robe flew high into the sky, bowed his hands to the surrounding base-building cultivators, and said loudly, "Everyone wait." Everyone was attracted by his voice and looked over. This old man is a 9th-layer foundation building cultivator. His hair is gray and his face is vicissitudes. It seems that he is approaching the limit of his lifespan. This person is the head of the Zhao family that Yang Linyuan was looking for, Zhao Yuanhuan. Immediately after, Zhao Yuanhuan flew in front of Zhou Mubai, bowed to Zhou Mubai, and was reluctant to get up for a long time. Zhou Mubai recognized the other party and quickly raised his hand and said, "Friend Zhao, why is this, heard?" Zhao Yuanhuan raised his head. Who knows, when Chen Daoxian saw the expression on his face, he only felt a shock in his heart. What a face this is! I saw Zhao Yuanhuan's face full of despair and misery as if he had been abused by others. His eye sockets even cracked open one after another, dripping with blood. "Senior Zhou," Zhao Yuanhuan said miserably, "My Zhao family, it's over. My Zhao family. It's over. The last sound was simply earth-shattering. It caused an uproar among the Guang'an people present. What happened? The Zhao family is the second largest family in Guang'an Prefecture after the Zhou and Yang families. The number of clansmen and cultivators is not lower than that of the Wu family, and they are good at alchemy. They have always been very popular in Guang'an Prefecture. Yeah, what a murderer to be able to do such a thing. First the Wu family, then the Zhao family. Hey, why do I feel that things are getting more and more complicated? Zhou Mubai heard the pained cry of the Zhao clan leader, grabbed Zhao Yuanhuan's arm, and said anxiously, "Don't be in a hurry, fellow Daoist Zhao, and make it clear." Hearing this, Zhao Yuanhuan had blood and tears in his eyes, and said in pain, "My clan has just sent a message to me, and the Lotus Island of my Zhao family has been attacked by a group of evil spirits." What evil is it? I don't know. Zhao Yuanhuan shook his head. Before he finished speaking, the other end of the communication was cut off. This. Zhou Mubai and the others looked at each other. Can we still contact you? Zhao Yuanhuan shook his head and said, the old man keeps contacting, but no one responds. Senior Zhao, please rescue my Zhao family. After this battle, my Zhao family is willing to lead the Zhou family. Don't mention it beforehand, let's go. Zhou Mubai grabbed Zhao Yuanhuan's body and was about to leave. Chen Daoxian hurriedly said, Brother Zhou, I would also like to go. Chen Daoxian also felt that something was wrong at the moment. First the Wu family was attacked, then the Zhao family. He has to find out the situation, otherwise such a disaster will happen to the Chen family. How can the Chen clan resist? Okay. Zhou Mubai glanced at Chen Daoxian and didn't think much about it. With a scroll of sword light, he took him and Zhao Yuanhuan into the sky and flew towards the Lotus Island. Chapter 144. The Lotus Archipelago is a large island in the middle of 8 islands, shaped like a lotus flower. Viewed from a high altitude, it looks like a lotus flower in full bloom. Here is the Zhao family land. The Zhao family, like the Yang family and the Wu family, used to be the Zifu family in Guang'an, but now it has declined and has become a foundation-building family. Even so, the background of the Zhao family is not comparable to that of ordinary foundation-building families. The Lotus Archipelago consists of 9 large islands, 8 small islands. Among the 8 smaller islands, the mortals of the Zhao family live, and the big island at the core is the residence of the cultivators of the Zhao family. But at the moment, on the Lotus Island, the Yin and evil spirits are permeating, and there is no such thing as the appearance of a fairyland. You must know that the original main island of the Lotus Archipelago has a third-order spiritual vein. But at this moment, this third-order spiritual vein has become the source of Yin Sha Qi. The main island of the Lotus Archipelago. Inside the Zhao family immortal mansion. At this moment, the whole immortal mansion was surrounded by Yin evil spirits, and there were ghosts and shadows in it. Not to mention mortals, even if the cultivators of the foundation establishment period come here, they will be attacked by the evil spirits before they stay here for a long time. Big brother. Why did you let that kid from Zhao's family go out? The person who spoke had a broad face and a blue face, and when he opened his mouth, Senhan's fangs loomed. Upon closer inspection, there were even traces of dark red flesh and blood left between the lips and teeth. Looking at the outline of his face, it was not the Sun brothers who went to the Shinjue immortal mansion to search for treasures. Hear what my brother said. The tall and thin corpse demon with a pale face raised his head and glanced at his brother. Its eyes are golden, and there is a hint of cruelty and coldness. This person is the previous white-faced base-building cultivator, Sun Fu. The Lord's order is for the 2 of us to capture Guang'an Mansion as soon as possible, and use this as a foundation to attack Zhangzhou Xiancheng. And as far as I know, there are only about 10 cultivators in the Zifu from the Zhou family in Guang'an. Moreover, Zhou Mubai from the Zhou family is a sword cultivator with outstanding combat power. He paused. If you want to win Guang'an Mansion as soon as possible, you must find a way to weaken the strength of the Zhou family. But are you so sure that the Zhou family will send the Zifu cultivator to investigate? I'm sure, and the Zhou family definitely sent more than one cultivator from the Purple House. Sun Fu rubbed his black nails. Its nails were as black as ink and as sharp as flying swords, and a string of sparks exploded under light friction. More than 100 cultivators of the Wu family at the foundation building stage were killed by us and turned into corpse servants. To be able to do this, at least a few cultivators of the Zifu have joined forces. Therefore, the Zhou family will definitely send Zifu cultivators to check it out this time, and there will be more than one. Sun Fu did not guess that the Zhou family had indeed sent a cultivator from the Zifu. It's just not a few, but Zhou Mubai. High in the air. Zhou Mubai's escape light swept across the sky, extremely fast. Chen Daoxian felt that Zhou Mubai's escape speed was even several times faster than his. Brother Zhou, don't you think this is a little strange? First the Wu family, then the Zhao family. How do I feel that the other party seems to be leading us by the nose on purpose? Hear this. Zhou Mubai froze slightly. Indeed, things have developed up to now, and it is indeed a bit abnormal. The purpose of attacking the Wu family's fleet was to show the Zhou family their strength, and the opponent had at least one cultivator from the Zifu. Immediately afterwards, the Zhao family was killed. As such, if the Zhou family wants to find out, they must send more than 3 cultivators of the Zifu to ensure that everything is safe. It seems so. Zhao family's Lotus Island, no matter how you look at it, looks a bit like a trap deliberately set by the other party. Zhou Mubai understood what Chen Daoxian meant, but the Wu family's fleet had an accident on the route to Xianqing in Guang'an Prefecture. Now the enemy is showing signs in the Zhao family land. Zhou Mubai had to go and find out just for the promise he made in front of his colleagues in Guang'an. Say it again. Zhou Mubai is a master of art and bold. He was sure that as long as he was not a late Jindan cultivator and used his trump card, he would have the assurance of escaping for his life. And if the other party has the strength of a late Jindan cultivator, why are they so sneaky? Directly attacking the immortal city of Guang'an Mansion will not be finished. Hearing Chen Daoxian's words, Zhou Mubai said with a solemn expression, no matter what, go to Lotus Island and see it first. Chen Daoxian nodded. Right now, that's all there is to it. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian couldn't help feeling a little irritable. Originally, the Guang'an Xianmeng and the Zhou family were fighting, but at best they were only fighting but not breaking. A direct armed conflict between the two sides is unlikely. But now, inexplicably, there has been evil chaos, and armed conflict is inevitable. Actually, whether in Wangxinghai or Xianyunsu, there are evil cultivators. Although the overall strength of these evil cultivators is not strong, they are like mice in the gutter. Of course. According to Zhao Yuanhuan's narration, what happened on Lotus Island may not be as simple as the evil cultivator. Zhou Mubai's escape was extremely fast. In less than an hour, it has crossed a distance of tens of thousands of miles. Front. Lotus Island is already in sight. This was the first time Chen Daoxian came to Lianhua Island, because the Chen family's Shuanghu Island was probably located on the left side of Guang'an Prefecture, while Lianhua Island was on the right side of Guang'an Prefecture. If you want to rush from Shuanghu Island to Lianhua Island, at the speed of Chen's cargo ship, it will take at least several months to sail. Moreover, the Chen family and the Zhao family are not familiar with each other, and there is not much interest in the two families, so there is no need to come here. Arrive. Seeing the white-haired Zhao Yuanhuan in his own family's land, his heart was burning, and he couldn't wait to go to Lotus Island to find out. But fortunately he still has some sense. Knowing that this trip must rely on Zhou Mubai's strength. An evil spirit. A purple light flashed in Zhou Mubai's eyes. Obviously, this is a spiritual pupil secret technique. Chen Daoxian couldn't see any Yin and evil spirits. Just looking at the main island of Lotus Island in front of him, there was an uncomfortable feeling. Brother Zhou, what is the evil spirit? Zhou Mubai descended an escape light on a small island outside and explained, you should know that spiritual energy is transformed from earth energy, right? Hearing this, Chen Daoxian nodded. Spiritual veins are built according to the terrain, and no spiritual vein can be built in the air. Even the power source Lingshu pool in the Zhoujia Lingshu battleship was made by using a unique refining method. Anyway, it is absolutely different from the spiritual veins. Evil energy is transformed from spiritual energy. Speaking of this, Zhou Mubai's face suddenly became serious. If it was an ordinary evil, Zhou Mubai would destroy it by himself. But an evil spirit that can transform the spiritual meridian into the Yin meridian is not something Zhou Mubai can act rashly. First, the evil spirits have a bonus in the Yin meridian, and the cultivator is in a place full of Yin evil energy, because the body has to resist the invasion of the Yin evil energy at all times, so it is good to be able to exert 7 or 8 achievements in one's strength. Over and over again, the strength gap will be huge. Perhaps the other party's early purple mansion can be used as the middle purple mansion. More importantly, since the other party has transformed the third-order spiritual meridian of the Zhao family into a Yin meridian, it proves that the cultivator of the Zhao family is already more fortunate. After Zhou Mubai's explanation, Chen Daoxian suddenly realized the seriousness of the matter. On the main island not far away, there is far more than one evil spirit hidden, but a large group of evil spirits. I just don't know the specific strength of this group of evil spirits. Fellow Daoist Zhao, Brother Chen, wait here for now, and wait until I go to the main island to investigate. Zhou Mubai bowed to the two of them. Zhao Yuanhuan knew that his strength was limited, and even if he went, it would drag Zhou Mubai back. But he turned his eyes to Chen Daoxian. Because in the eyes of the Zhao clan leader, Chen Daoxian is also a sword cultivator. Although his strength is not as good as Zhou Mubai, he is definitely much stronger than his foundation-building cultivator with a near lifespan. See the eyes of the Zhao family leader. Chen Daoxian pondered for a moment and said, Brother Zhou, why don't you and I join forces to find out how? Hear this. Zhou Mubai suddenly felt that Chen Daoxian was not timid, but immediately thought of his strength, and nodded in agreement. With the foundation of sword cultivation made by Chen Daoxian, his strength is definitely comparable to that of ordinary monks in the early period of Zifu. If Chen Daoxian went, it would also be a help to him. Chapter 145. 2 rays of light quietly descended on the main island of Lotus Island. It was Zhou Mubai and Chen Daoxian. As soon as he entered this island, Chen Daoxian discovered that there was a completely different atmosphere here from the 8 surrounding islands. Not long after he landed, this breath invaded Chen Daoxian's body. See. Zhou Muqing threw a green elixir over, and said, This is the evil-breaking pill, which can resist evil spirits within 3 hours, and will not affect your strength. After he finished speaking, he thought about it and threw it to Chen Daoxian as a spare. Chen Daoxian raised his head and took the posha pill. Immediately, the Yin evil qi no longer invaded his body, as if there was a layer of protection, which vaguely isolated him from the Yin evil qi. Zhou Mubai also took a posha pill and said, Brother Chen, be careful in everything. Don't worry, Brother Zhou. Chen Daoxian nodded. Although he didn't know how many evil spirits were on this island or how strong the evil spirits were, Chen Daoxian was very confident in himself, especially in Zhou Mubai's strength. With Zhou Mubai around, even if he encounters a Jindan-level evil, he can evacuate safely with himself. After taking the posha pill, the two did not dare to waste time, and headed straight for the Zhao family's spiritual veins. Because they were afraid of scaring the snakes, Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai did not choose to walk in the air, but flew on the ground like mortal warriors. It's just that the speed of the cultivator is much faster than that of the mortal warrior. In the eyes of mortal warriors, you can't even see the shadows of the two of them. Since both of them had practiced the breath conditioning technique, the auras on Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai's bodies had all faded to an almost inaudible level. The other side. In the Zhao family land, Sun Fu was holding a circular mirror-shaped instrument in his hand, and what was displayed on the circular mirror was the figures of Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai running away. Zhou Mubai. Sun Fu was overjoyed when he saw Zhou Mubai's figure. Originally, it thought that if it could get rid of a few ordinary Zhou family cultivators this time, it would be a big victory. Unexpectedly, I caught a big fish. However, happy to be happy, Sun Fu did not dare to be careless. After all, Zhou Mubai was a sword cultivator, and his real combat power far surpassed that of an ordinary cultivator of the Zifu. Even, given Zhou Mubai's current level of cultivation on the third floor of the Purple Mansion, several late-stage cultivators of the Purple Mansion were not necessarily his opponents. After all, when Zhou Mubai defeated Luo Xiuyuan 5 or 6 years ago, he was only at the first level of Zifu. Think of this. Sun Fu said to the younger brother beside him, "Go and see, have those few corpse servants with perfect foundations been made?" "Brother, don't worry, you have already practiced it." The broad-faced man's face was blue and purple, and his fangs were exposed. With the complete strength of our 2 purple houses, plus the 3-headed corpse servants of the early purple house, Zhou Mubai will definitely be left behind. Still can't be careless. Sun Fu shook his head. Even if Zhou Mubai is defeated, with the background of the Zhou family, it is impossible not to give him a life-saving trump card. If he escapes at that time, things will be troublesome, heard. The white-faced zombie took this seriously, and said seriously, "I have already arranged a great formation of 10,000 corpses and blood, and combined with the evil spirit of the Third Order in Meridian, Zhou Mubai will never be able to escape." Sun Fu was relieved to hear the great formation of corpses and blood. With the complete battle strength of their 2 Zifu, plus the early battle strength of the 3 Zifu, a total of 5 Zifu, combined with the great array of 10,000 corpses and bloody demons, couldn't win Zhou Mubai. Then he is too scary. I am afraid that the real strength is comparable to Jindan Cultivator. Arrive! Zhou Mubai raised his hand and used the spirit pupil secret technique, only to see that the mountains in front were enveloped by a thick layer of black air. "It's here, the source of the evil spirit," Zhou Mubai said solemnly. This moment, the 2 of them no longer have any expectations for the survival of the Zhao family cultivator. It's just, where have the mortals of the Zhao family gone? This point, both of them were very puzzled at the beginning. You know, in addition to tens of thousands of monks, the Zhao family also has millions of mortals. So many mortals, even if they die, there will always be a place to bury their bodies. But the truth is, Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai searched all over the 8 small islands, but they didn't find a single Zhao family mortal. The only possibility now is the mortals of the Zhao family were made into corpse servants by this group of evil spirits. There is a third order in vein here, and it is not too convenient to refine a corpse. Think of this. Chen Daoxian could not help clenching his fists. As someone who has been educated in previous civilizations, since Chen Daoxian was born, he felt that his 3 views were out of tune with this world. Because compared to the previous life, the world is more cruel and naked. The humble and cautious life of mortals in this world far exceeds the ancient society of the previous life. This can be known by looking at the awe-inspiring attitude of the mortals in Chen Daoxian's clan towards him. This is still family. Other ordinary people tend to be more humble when they see a monk. Because this is a group of existences that can take their lives if they move their fingers. Sometimes, Chen Daoxian feels that he is very lucky, because he has spiritual roots, at least in this world, he can try to control his own destiny. But ordinary mortals, first, they have no force, and second, they have no productivity, and even their living space depends on the monk's mercy and charity. Even so, the mortals in this world are still tenacious and hardworking. This moment, Chen Daoxian had a qi in his heart, an uneasy qi. Whether it is a monk or a mortal, everyone is a human race. Obviously they are both human races. Mortals have already lived so humble, yet they still suffer such a tragic fate. Millions of people who said that they were made into corpses were made into corpses. Chen Daoxian didn't know whether these evil spirits were human or ghost. But he is in this moment. He secretly swore in his heart that he would never die with these beasts. Zhou Mubai seemed to notice that Chen Daoxian exuded a strong killing intent, and said in surprise, "Brother Chen, what's the matter?" Nothing, just thinking about the affairs of the Zhao family, I feel a little uncomfortable. Hear this. Zhou Mubai sighed and comforted, maybe, things are not as bad as you think. This sentence. He didn't even believe it himself, but Zhou Mubai could only comfort himself like this. Millions of lives were lost just like that. Go! Zhou Mubai took out an invisibility talisman and slapped it on himself, and then slapped one on Chen Daoxian. Immediately, a roll of sword light took Chen Daoxian to fly towards the deep mountains. He was eager to take a look at this moment. Are things really as bad as the two of them imagined? But when Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai flew over several hills, they saw a scene in the basin surrounded by several mountains that they will never forget. In the valley below, one after another corpses piled up in the valley basin like a pile of garbage. Zhou Mubai used the spirit pupil secret technique and found that all the corpses piled up in the mountains were filled with evil energy infecting their corpses. All the time. These corpses are being tempered by Sha Qi. Sure enough, they are refining corpses. Zhou Mubai's face was ashen. At this moment, Chen Daoxuan's hands were shaking slightly. He almost clenched his teeth, and a sentence popped out of his mouth, "I'm going to chop up these bit by bit. I'll be with you," Zhou Mubai said with a pale face. Chapter 146. I heard that someone is going to chop me up. Behind the two, a cold voice came over. Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai turned around quickly when they heard the sound. Because they did not dare to reveal their traces, not only did the two of them dare not reveal their bodies, but they also did not dare to release their spiritual senses, for fear of stunning snakes. Did not expect. The two are so careful. Still found out. Seeing that the two of them were discovered, Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai simply released the invisibility talisman and the breath-holding technique on their bodies. Confrontation with Brother Sun Fu in the air. Behind Brother Sun Fu, 3 corpse servants dressed in spirit armor and covered in silver luster stood in the air, surrounded by blood and evil spirits. Zhou Mubai recognized at a glance that the 3 were monks from the Wu and Zhao families during their lifetimes. And all of them were foundation building and perfect cultivation. Unexpectedly, after some tempering by the Sun brothers, they were actually promoted to the level of Zifu. However, Zhou Mubai knew that this kind of forcibly promoted Zifu corpse refining was no match for a normal Zifu cultivator. After all, this kind of corpse refining is only a powerful body, and the means are very limited. Of course, its attack and defense definitely reach the level of the Zifu cultivator. If you think that the Zifu cultivator has a lot of methods, you dare to ignore the opponent's attack, which is completely courting death. By now, Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai only had a fight. But what they didn't expect was that a light curtain rose straight up from the corpse refining ground, and instantly sealed the sky above Chen Daoxuan's heads. Not good. Seeing this, Zhou Mubai pulled Chen Daoxian up, and the light flashed, but was still stopped by the blood-colored light curtain. How about it? What's the taste of the 10,000 corpses and blood demons that I prepared for you? Sun Fu looked at the two of them in the formation, and burst into gloomy smiles. Although the Sun brothers are also in the great formation of 10,000 corpses and blood evil, this kind of blood evil spirit will only enhance the strength of their zombies, not weaken them. Really? As the blood evil spirit in the formation is getting heavier and heavier, it has become more and more difficult to stop the blood evil spirit from attacking. Zhou Mubai and Chen Daoxian had to use their true essence and mana to resist the attack of Sha Qi. No, if we go on like this, we will die when our mana and true essence are exhausted. Zhou Mubai's face became solemn. The corpse servant of the Z Palace belongs to you. Done. A scroll of sword light directly enveloped the Sun brothers and the two corpses. The Sun brothers knew that Zhou Mubai's strength was amazing. But at this moment, Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai are already trapped in the formation. They don't need to fight with each other recklessly, they just need to wait for the formation to use up their real mana. The two naturally became meat on the chopping board, and they were slaughtered. Especially Zhou Mubai is a sword cultivator. I don't know if the corpse made by sword training will be stronger than the ordinary corpse. Sun Fu fully thought. From the moment it was transformed into a zombie by the real god, it was completely distorted. What it wants now is to make all the people in the world into zombies. In this way, everyone will be the same again. As for zombies, they have no pain, no touch, no taste, and no soul. What does it matter? Corpse servants don't need self-awareness, they just need to be the master's puppet. The reason why the two brothers retained their self-awareness was because their masters needed them to complete the task of capturing Zhangzhou. And their master, God Ju Daoist, seems to be extra cautious. Hiding in the old nest is not willing to take risks at all, so all this can only be done by the two of them. If you want to do this, a corpse without self-awareness can't do it. This is also the only lucky place for the two of his brothers. Seeing that the last zombie was still rushing towards Zhou Mubai, Chen Daoxian rolled up the sword light and involved it in his attack. The sword gas turns into rain, the white marks form a curtain, and the sword marks merge into one, turning into stars. This is the change in Chen Daoxian's Kendo's external performance before and after comprehending the Siyu sword intent. Now, one after another star, like a falling star, smashed onto the silver body of the Zifu zombie. But this Zifu zombie not only has spiritual armor to protect the body, but also has a strong body. Chen Daoxian felt that the opponent's physical body was even more terrifying than the monsters of the same rank, and he felt no pain. After Chen Daoxian's sword marks were united, the attack power of sword transformation Starlight definitely reached the level of the early days of Zifu. The only difference between him and the Zifu cultivator may be in defense. That's right. As a sword cultivator, defense once again became his shortcoming. But this is also the shortcoming of all sword cultivators in the world. Because Jian Shou originally focused on attacking, and paid attention to attacking instead of defending. If even Jiangxia's attack can't break the opponent's defense, it proves that the gap between the two sides is already huge, and there is not much difference between defense and defense. But at the moment, the situation is somewhat special. Chen Daoxian encountered a Zifu zombie, who happened to be good at defense. Compared to its defense, the attack of this Zifu zombie did not cause much damage to Chen Daoxian. Whenever the opponent pounces, he just needs to use the star to smash his figure and avoid it a little. As a result, the two sides were at a stalemate. To be frank, if you change the scene, Chen Daoxian is really not afraid of fighting a war of attrition with the opponent. After all, he has a reserve of true essence, the second-order fortune-telling White Lotus. But at this moment, he can't afford it. The blood-colored evil spirit is getting stronger and stronger, eroding and consuming his true essence all the time. And even if he can afford it, Zhou Mubai may not be able to afford it. After all, Zhou Mubai doesn't have his natal magic weapon. Think of this. He glanced at Zhou Mubai's battle circle. It seems that they are afraid of Zhou Mubai's attacking methods. The Sun brothers' play style is quite obscene, that is, try to avoid fighting with the opponent as much as possible. It really had to be reckless, and it was also a few zombies who worked together recklessly. Hit now. Zhou Mubai did cut off one of the two zombies in the early stage of Zifu. But with the replenishment of the blood evil spirit, Chen Daoxian found that the zombie's hand actually grew again. Chen Daoxian immediately saw the problem. Every time Zhou Mubai wanted to kill a zombie in the early stage of Zifu, in order to break the balance of combat power between the two sides, the Sun brothers tried their best to intercept it. With the perfect strength of his brother Zifu, even if Zhou Mubai could beat them, he would have to spend a lot of effort. Every time there was such a delay, the zombie crisis in the early days of Zifu was resolved, and the Sun brothers began to fight against Zhou Mubai again. Chen Daoxian could see it. Together, the two corpses were able to force Zhou Mubai's attack. This is also the confidence for them to kill Zhou Mubai. If Zhou Mubai could kill them with one sword, they probably ran away when they first discovered Zhou Mubai. See this. Chen Daoxian turned his heart, and while avoiding the attack of the Zifu zombie, he said, "Big brother Zhou, I will block one of their brothers, and you will do your best to deal with the other zombies." Hear this. Zhou Mubai was surprised at first, but then he realized that there was nothing he could do at this moment, so he had to take the risk and agree. Okay. Chapter 147, Next Moment. Chen Daoxian rushed into Zhou Mubai's battle circle with the zombie he was fighting with. Zhou Mubai saw the timing, and a sword beam pierced the sky. The sword glow was hundreds of feet long, drowning everyone's sight. Now, in the eyes of everyone, there is nothing else between heaven and earth except this sword glow. Even the aura that permeated the formation of 10,000 corpses was split apart by the sword glow. The sword light finally hit the red light curtain of the great array of 10,000 corpses and blood, sending out little ripples and disappearing. See this scene. Zhou Mubai's heart sank, but he was not too disappointed. Because his purpose has been achieved. I saw this sword beam hundreds of feet long, forcibly separating the Sun brothers who had been inseparable. Sun Fu saw this. After a pause, he flew up, wanting to meet his younger brother. But Zhou Mubai would never give him a chance. As soon as the sword light was rolled, he re-involved it into his own offensive, and together with it, the early Zifu zombie who was fighting with Chen Daoxian was involved. Well done. Chen Daoxian's face was filled with joy, and then a star appeared, directly bombarding the wide-faced zombie who wanted to meet Sun Fu. Boom! The stars fell like shooting stars. It smashed on the silver-purple body of Sun Fu's younger brother Sun Mang, causing it to slam back into aid. Sun Mang looked at Chen Daoxian who attacked it, and opened his mouth full of fangs. A golden light flashed from the depths of his pupils, full of tyranny and cruelty. Jia Jia! You actually want to stop me? It's just you, herd. Chen Daoxian took a deep breath and nodded, "It's just me." How brave! Sun Mang roared. Immediately, a fist smashed towards Chen Daoxian. Chen Daoxian, like dealing with the Zifu zombie before, also turned his flying sword into a star and bombarded it. Who knows, the zombies in the early stage of the Zifu could stagger their attacks and put them on Sun Mang, but after a little while, they dashed towards Chen Daoxian again. Not good. Chen Daoxian's eyes narrowed. Obviously, the zombies of Zifu's completeness were far beyond his scope of coping. After all, his current cultivation base is only the initial stage of foundation building. Other cultivators at his cultivation level, let alone fighting against the zombies of the Purple Mansion, it is estimated that a roar of the enemy can scare the cultivators in the early stage of foundation establishment to the core. In the nick of time, Chen Daoxian escaped with a flash of light, and avoided Sun Mang's attack dangerously. Hide? Sun Mang smiled cruelly, "How long can you hide?" Chen Daoxian was silent. In the face of the zombie with the complete strength of Zifu, he no longer has the energy to speak again, and he must pay full attention to the other party's movements. After all, as long as he hits the opponent with a random blow, he will be killed on the spot by the opponent. Chen Daoxian had no doubts about this. This means that zombies can only melee combat and have limited means. If it is replaced by a human race who reaches the complete monk of the Zifu, Chen Daoxian will definitely be beheaded on the spot in 3 or 2 strokes, and there will be no chance to play such an exciting game with the other party. Seems to think of something. Chen Daoxian thought about it. Moment. Within a radius of thousands of feet, it was shrouded in a curtain of rain. Sword chi turns into rain. This ability that he realized before comprehending sword intent, as Chen Daoxian's swordsmanship cultivation became more and more profound, he has used it less and less. Because of the enemies he faced. Either the early period of Zifu, or the great perfection of Zifu. Not even a normal foundation establishment cultivator. In the face of an opponent of this level, the move of sword chi into rain is simply scratching the opponent's itch. Shichichi. The raindrops that the sword energy turned into fell on Sun Mang's terrifying body with silver-purple muscles and knots, making a chi-chi-chi sound. But not even a single hair on the other side could be hurt. Jia Jia, Sun Mang smiled and said, "Why, are you tickling me? If you only have this ability, then go to hell. Say it." Sun Mang's body was like electricity, and he rushed towards Chen Daoxian with a 3-point speed faster than before. And this moment, Chen Daoxian seemed to be frightened, standing still. Boom! The claws pierced the air and let out a roar. Sun Mang's sharp claws were as black as ink and sharp as sharp swords. With just one blow, Chen Daoxian's figure was torn apart. However, no blood flowed out. After image, Sun Mang turned his head, and the next moment, he found that Chen Daoxian appeared in front of him one after another in the rain curtain with a radius of several thousand meters. This. Sun Mang was a little dumbfounded. He is a zombie and has no soul, so he has no consciousness. At this moment, he can't tell which Chen Daoxian in front of him is real. And among these, Chen Daoxian, some people disappear from time to time, and new Chen Daoxian appear from time to time. Weird. This is Chen Daoxian's understanding of the technique of sword-like transforming rainbow for several months, combined with his own sword intent, and created a short-range fighting technique. This kind of movement is not only fast like lightning, but also has the effect of confusing the enemy. Just like now. The sight of hundreds of Chen Daoxian figures in front of Sun Mang made him extremely annoyed. Because he couldn't tell which figure was real and which figure was fake. This method is the inspiration Chen Daoxian got from the Rain of Sword Qi, which is to use the human body as a flying sword. It's just that the strength of the physical body is quite high. Fortunately, Chen Daoxian has practiced the body training method, so there is not much problem in cultivating this body method. This body technique was named by him, Body Transformation Sword Light. Dozens of figures were torn apart in a row, but none of them were real, and Chen Daoxian's figures became more and more smashed, and finally it was almost like a rain curtain turned into sword qi. It was attached to Sun Mang's body. How can there be such a reason? How can there be such a reason? Sun Mang was so angry at Chen Daoxian's sloppy play that he shouted. Obviously Chen Daoxian's strength is far inferior to him, but he is playing around with him, how can he not be angry? This moment. He suddenly fell in love with the divine consciousness he had when he was a human monk. If he has divine consciousness, how could he be played by Chen Daoxian like this? At least he can tell the truth from the fake. But what it doesn't know is that even if it has spiritual consciousness, it is extremely difficult to distinguish the true from the false, because Chen Daoxian has practiced the breath-holding technique and has practiced it to a very advanced level. There are only two ways to decipher this method. One is that the cultivator's consciousness far surpasses that of Chen Daoxian, and he can naturally see through the truth at a glance. Another method is to practice the secret technique of spiritual eyes, like Zhou Mubai, and be able to distinguish the true from the false. On the field, Sun Mang became more and more angry. Go away. Sudden. Sun Mang became anxious when he saw that his eldest brother was in a precarious situation under Zhou Mubai's offensive. One claw tore apart Chen Daoxian's sword light incarnation. He rushed towards Zhou Mubai's battle circle. But the reason why Chen Daoxian held it up was to let Zhou Mubai kill the enemy, so how could he be willing to let Sun Mang return to help at this moment? Next second, a ray of stars fell and hit Sun Mang's chest, causing him to stop. But other than that, Xingmang did no harm to Sun Mang. Chen Daoxian didn't expect his attack to hurt the opponent either. All he had to do was hold back Sun Mang. Now, the anxious party instead became the Sun brothers. The other side. Sun Fu saw that his younger brother roared wildly, but took Chen Daoxian to do nothing, and his heart gradually sank. He figured everything out. But only the variable Chen Daoxian was missed. Without Chen Daoxian, with the help of his younger brother Sun Fu, and the three-headed Zifu early-stage zombies, with the help of the 10,000 corpses and blood demons, they were at least 80% sure to keep Zhou Mubai. But now, think of this. Sun Fu shook his heart and took out a white ball the size of an adult fist. Chapter 148. Come out. You come out. What kind of skill does light hide? Sun Mang's green face and fangs, his eyes are sunken, and he looks like a madman. In the face of Sun Mang's clamor, Chen Daoxian rationally ignored him. See you. Sun Mang's sharp claws slashed wildly in the rain, but what was torn apart was just Chen Daoxian's sword light incarnation. Even the speed of his shredding is not as fast as that of Chen Daoxian. In a radius of thousands of meters, the incarnations are constantly emerging like raindrops. Even if Sun Mang smashed dozens and hundreds of sword light incarnations with one blow, Chen Daoxian could create 10 times the amount in an instant. Have to say, this move is used to deal with Sun Mang, an enemy who has no means of group attack and can only fight in close combat. It is very useful. Of course. This move can only be used to delay time. It is almost impossible to kill the enemy. Because of Chen Daoxian's strongest attack, he couldn't even break the opponent's defense. This self-knowledge, he still has it. The other side. Fighting with me, how dare you get distracted? As soon as the words rang in Sun Fu's ear, he secretly screamed in his heart, and his body quickly turned away. The next moment, a dazzling sword beam slashed through its left arm like a piece of training, directly cutting off its left arm at the root. Die! Zhou Mubai was so powerful that he controlled his flying sword again to behead him. Although zombies are invulnerable, water and fire are invulnerable. But it is not without any weaknesses, such as cutting off its head and smashing its corpse pills. The zombies will completely disappear. How dare Sun Fu take Zhou Mubai's flying sword again? Hurriedly called the three-headed Zifu early corpse servant to block the sword for it. The three-headed corpse servant did not know why he was afraid, but he completely obeyed the master's order and slammed into Zhou Mubai's sword light head-on. Just for a moment. There was a corpse servant from the early period of Zifu that was split in half by Zhou Mubai's flying sword. Although the blood-evil energy of the 10,000 corpse blood demon formation kept pouring towards the body of this corpse servant, trying to repair its broken corpse, but it was useless after all. Sun Fu saw that it was a little distracted, and Zhou Mubai seized the opportunity and abolished one of its helpers. I was shocked and angry at the moment. No! It can't go on like this. Sun Fu was secretly anxious. Followed. He glanced at Zhou Mubai, and then at Chen Daoxian who kept playing with his younger brother. I have a decision in my heart. First kill the weak one, then concentrate on killing Zhou Mubai. Think of this. Sun Fu picked up the white orb in his hand and threw it in the air. The Dharma beads seemed to possess spirituality. They spun around in the air, and then a ray of light shone toward Chen Daoxian. Who knows? Zhou Mubai saw this scene. Suddenly, a scene recorded in the ancient books of the clan appeared in his mind. God is a real person. Soul Divine Pearl. This is the famous magic weapon of Xinjue Jinren back then, the Soul Ding Divine Pearl. Rumors. This bead can cooperate with a unique magical power inherited from the real immortals of the upper realm, called Dingpa Xinguang. The power of calming divine light is extremely powerful. With the cultivation of Xinjue Jinren in the later stage of Jindan back then, he could even use this magical power to fix the Yuanying Jinjuan who was one level higher than his cultivation. To know. In a battle between high-level monks, there is no need to say more about what will happen if one side is controlled by the other side. That was simply one-sided brutality. It is precisely because of this supernatural power, coupled with the unique means of escape and hiding of the real person of God Jueju. And Shenyuan Jianzong was involved in his own internal affairs. Let Xinjue Jinren run rampant in Sangzhou and several surrounding states for nearly 100 years. It wasn't until Shenyuan Jianzong resolved his internal affairs that he freed up his hands and cleaned it up. Do not. To be precise. Zhou Mubai wasn't sure whether the real Xinjue was beheaded or not. Because Shenyuan Jianzong did not bring back the body of the other party, but only announced in public that Shinjue Jinren blew himself up and died. He left Sangzhou in a hurry. Now, 400 years have passed. The matter of Shinjue Jinren has long been blocked by the major families. If it wasn't for the fact that the scattered cultivators kept telling the story of this person, the name of Shinjue Zenren would have been completely forgotten by people. Now, Shinjue Zenren's famous magic weapon has appeared again. Think of this. Zhou Mubai was in a hurry. If what happened in the Zhao family land, behind it is the words of Shinjue real people. Zhou Mubai's first reaction was to flee immediately and report to Qianyuan sword sect. As the heir of the Zhou family, he knew much more about Shinjue Jinren than the outsiders. In those days, the Qianyuan sword sect sent a total of 3 Yuanying true monarchs to encircle and suppress each other. As a result, not only did he not even see the body of the other party, but he also damaged a true monarch nascent soul. That's right. Shenju Daoist accomplished a feat that no one in the history of Wan Xinghai could do. With the cultivation of Jindan, the reverse beheading of the Yuanying true monarch is still in the case of one enemy 3. And now it seems that this one is very likely not dead. After all, its magic weapon appeared, and this time the Zhao family was suddenly destroyed. No matter how you look at it, it looks like the Taoist god Jueju came back to take revenge on the Cangzhou cultivator. After all, Shinjue Jinren was born in Cangzhou. Also has the most grudges with the monks of the major families in Cangzhou. In Guang'an Prefecture, almost every big family with a long tradition has suffered great losses at the hands of Shinjue Renren. The Zhou family was originally a Jindan family, and the ancestor of the Jindan in the clan died in the battle against Shenjuezhen. Careful! Zhou Mubai burst out his strongest attack while shouting, "Qinglian sword art! Give me death, in midair! A cyan lotus flower is budding." This duo Qinglian wrapped the 2 zombies in the early stage of the purple palace that stood in front of him. Followed. The green lotus flower is open, with 1 petal, 2 petals and 3 petals. Every time the petals open, the zombie body in the early stage of Zifu becomes illusory. To the end. These 2 zombies disappeared completely in front of everyone, not even the scum left. At the same time, the rays of light from the divine soul bead had already shone on Chen Daoxuan's body. Instant time. Chen Daoxian only felt a strange energy that imprisoned his sea of consciousness. But the golden scroll, Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, that was suppressed in the sea of consciousness space trembled slightly. This imprisoned force instantly disappeared without a trace. From the outside world, the soul-defining light radiated by the soul-fixing bead was actually ineffective against Chen Daoxian. How could it be ineffective? This time, Sun Fu was completely dumbfounded, but the Lord told it that although the soul-fixing bead in his hand was a fake, it was enough to hold a Jindan cultivator for 3 breaths. Chen Daoxian is just a foundation-building cultivator. How could he be fine? Could it be, is the Lord deceiving it? Impossible. Sun Fu quickly shook his head, the Lord had no reason to deceive it. Then, there is only one possibility. In Chen Daoxuan's sea of consciousness space, there is a treasure that can guard the sea of consciousness. Think of this. Sun Fu couldn't help shouting bad luck. If I knew earlier, it would be better to use this divine light on Zhou Mubai. He was just worried that Zhou Mubai had treasures to protect his body, so he chose Chen Daoxian, who looked better to bully. I didn't expect that Soul Ding Xinguang would be of no use to Chen Daoxian at all. Chapter 149. Zhou Mubai killed 2 zombies in the early Zifu with 1 sword. Then he looked at Sun Fu, and he was so frightened that he hurriedly fled. Don't mind chasing Sun Fu. Zhou Mubai raised his head and looked at the blood-colored light curtain above. Take a deep breath. The next moment, he mustered all the mana in his dantian. Aura flashed in his eyes, apparently using the spirit pupil secret technique. Found it. Faintly, he seemed to have discovered the weak point of the red light curtain. I saw him raise his hand, and a cyan giant lotus was suspended above his head, pressing towards the blood-colored light curtain. Kakaka. As the green lotus petals continue to bloom, the blood-colored light curtain made an overwhelmed cracking sound. Boom! With a loud noise, the blood-colored light curtain shattered directly into a huge gap. See this scene. Zhou Mubai's face brightened. Looking at Chen Daoxian, who was still taking Sun Meng around in circles, in a flash, he found Chen Daoxuan's true body. Seeing Zhou Mubai find Chen Daoxuan's real body, the red-eyed Sun Meng headed straight for the two of them regardless. Roll! Zhou Mubai roared, and a sword beam of several hundred meters slashed straight at him. With a single sword, Sun Meng was sent flying more than 10 miles away. This sword! Immediately, Sun Meng, who looked like a madman, calmed down and looked at Zhou Mubai with a faint hint of fear. Too fierce. This sword is just a little bit stronger, and it can shatter its corpse pill. The corpse pill shattered, and it really died. Unlike injuries like broken hands and feet, it can be easily recovered. Go! A sword smashed Sun Meng, and Zhou Mubai didn't care about chasing him, so he flew Chen Daoxian towards the shattered opening of the blood-colored light curtain. Finally! Before the blood-colored light curtain closes again, Zhou Mubai rushed out with Chen Daoxian. This moment, Chen Daoxian noticed that Zhou Mubai's face was as pale as paper. Obviously, the explosion of the big move just now cost him a lot. It's normal to think about it. First, he killed 2 zombies in the early stage of Zifu with a single sword, and then broke through the formation of 10,000 corpses that claimed to be able to trap the Jindan cultivator. And before leaving, a sword hit Sun Meng, who had completed the Purple Mansion, severely. This round broke out, and even with Zhou Mubai's third-floor cultivation base, his mana was almost exhausted at this moment. Not to mention that the great array of 10,000 corpses and blood evil is consuming both of the true essence and mana all the time. Brother Zhou, are you alright? Hearing this, Zhou Mubai shook his head and said with a hint of happiness, "Thanks for bringing you here this time, otherwise I'd be really in danger this time." The situation just now. Even if a cultivator in the early stage of Jindan came here, he might be killed by the Sun brothers. Anyway, in the corpse and blood evil array, as long as you can't kill them in one hit, they can quickly recover with the power of Blood Sha, as if they have an immortal body. And with the power of the 5 Zifu, coupled with the weakening of the human cultivator's strength by the 10,000 corpse blood fiend, it might really be possible to grind the cultivator to death in the early stage of Jindan. Anyway, Zhou Mubai felt that if he came alone, he would be less than 30% sure of escaping. Hear this. Chen Daoxian also felt very fortunate. Fortunately, Zhou Mubai's strength is strong, otherwise the two of them will die on this trip. This is probably the most dangerous situation Chen Daoxian has ever encountered in his life. Trapped in a formation. In the immortal cultivation world, how many high-level monks were slowly grinded to death by a group of low-level monks trapped in the formation? There are simply too many such examples. Chen Daoxian did not expect that he would meet him today. A small island outside Lotus Island. Zhao Yuanhuan was furious, but he knew that at this moment, he couldn't do anything except wait for Zhou Mubai's news. Current situation. Clearly beyond his capabilities. At this time, a ray of light flew from the horizon from far to near. Just as Zhao Yuanhuan was about to bow his hands in salute, he felt a whirlwind in the next instant. Only the word "go" sounded in his ear. When he regained his shape, he was already standing on Zhou Mubai's Feijin. Until it escaped thousands of miles away. Zhou Mubai breathed a sigh of relief. Zhou. Senior Zhou, may I ask, how is the situation in my clan? Zhao Yuanhuan couldn't wait to see Zhou Mubai breathed a sigh of relief. Heard. Whether it was Zhou Mubai or Chen Daoxian, their eyes dimmed. Zhou Mubai patted Zhao Yuanhuan's thin shoulder and said solemnly, "Friend Zhao Dao, please condolences." Hearing this, Zhao Yuanhuan only felt that his heart had been hit hard by others, and he couldn't help but growl, "Senior Zhou, please explain clearly, what is condolences? Could it be that I, the cultivator of the Zhao family, are all aside. Chen Daoxian said in a low voice, not only your Zhao family cultivator, but even the ordinary Zhao family. Do not hear this. Zhao Yuanhuan immediately spurted out a mouthful of blood, and there was a hint of death in his eyes. Zhao family. Zhao Yuanhuan was the only one left. A large family of tens of thousands of people was destroyed in one day. Seeing Zhao Yuanhuan's appearance, neither of them knew how to comfort him. Or any words of comfort now are pale and powerless words for Zhao Yuanhuan, an old man with a near lifespan. Perhaps, for Zhao Yuanhuan, the only consolation is to personally kill the murderers of the Zhao family. Unfortunately, he is destined to not have the ability to do so. This moment, he is completely desperate for this world. To the end. The death intent in Zhao Yuanhuan's eyes became heavier and heavier. When the two arrived at Lingbei Island, Zhao Yuanhuan sat stiffly on Zhou Mubai's flying sword, and there was no breath in his nose. Zhao. Young Daoist Zhao. Chen Daoxian called softly. He died. Zhou Mubai shook his head. To die from exhaustion of longevity, let alone die of despair. Hear this. Chen Daoxian couldn't help but think of the piles of corpses piled up in the mountain basin. There was an uncontrollable anger in my heart. He stepped forward, squatted down in front of Zhao Yuanhuan, his voice was soft but firm, young Daoist Zhao, don't worry, we will definitely avenge the revenge of your Zhao family for you. Zhou Mubai stood behind Chen Daoxian, wondering what he was thinking for a while. Limba Island. Zhou family. Chen Daoxian stepped into the Zhou family's clan for the first time. I have always heard that the Zhou family land is a place of cultivation like a fairyland. See you today. Far more exaggerated than rumored. The aura of the fourth order spiritual meridian can no longer be simply described as rich, but rather pure. This feeling is like the aura filtered by Chen Daoxian with water spirit beads. Even more terrifying. This kind of spiritual energy has not been filtered by the water spirit beads, that is to say, as long as the Zhou family cultivator is willing, he can filter the spiritual energy again with the water spirit beads at any time to achieve a better cultivation effect. No cultivation resources are mentioned. Just this fourth order spiritual vein alone, in the entire Guang'an prefecture, there is only one family. As for the other three big families, the Yang family, the Wu family, and the Zhao family, which has been exterminated, only have the third-order spiritual veins as a place for clan people to practice. Zhou family land, in the highest Lingshan Palace. Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai met Zhou Mingho, the patriarch of the Zhou family. Chapter 150, Inside the Palace. Zhou Mingho frowned after listening to Zhou Mubai's narration. Are you saying that, behind the murder of the entire Zhao family, it is possible that the real person Shinju is doing a ghost? Zhou Mubai nodded, it's not possible, but very possible. He paused, the divine power of soul-fixing divine light is the inheritance that Shinjue Jinren received from the immortals in the upper realm. No one in the entire Wangxinghai knows this magical power, not even the Chenyuan sword sect has recorded it. Hear this. Zhou Mingho nodded, it shouldn't be wrong, Chenyuan Zhenzong can even use the Zhenzong exercise, Chenyuan Zhenjing, to exchange for battle merits, so as not to hide a magical power of immortals. Chen Daoxian said, is it possible that these two zombies in the perfect state of Zifu also found the Shinjue Immortal Palace because of good luck and obtained inheritance, and later became zombies because of other encounters? It's not impossible, Zhou Mubai thought for a while, but it's not very likely. Generally speaking, people will lose their minds after they become zombies. It is extremely difficult for zombies to restore their minds. And if a zombie wants to achieve a golden pill, it must experience a thunder tribulation that is 10 times more terrifying than that of a human cultivator. It is difficult for evil things to become a climate, and it is also related to thunder tribulation. But these two people, who are clearly Zifu cultivation base, have consciousness, obviously the person who refines them deliberately. And the person who made them is very likely to be the real Shinjue 400 years ago, at time. The matter was unexpectedly guessed by Zhou Mubai. Only through an imitation of the Soul Ding divine pearl, everyone speculated that Shinju Jinren was still alive. But this news is a little too sensational. Zhou Mingho and Zhou Mubai both looked serious. Qin Daoxian, who knew the least about the chaos of God, was the most calm. After all, in his opinion, no matter how powerful Shinju Jinren is, he is definitely not the opponent of Qianyuan sword sect. Patriarch, are we going to report this to Qianyuan Zhenzong? Zhou Mubai's face was pale, and he bowed his hands. A long time. Zhou Mingho sighed and said, report it, this matter is beyond the scope of my Zhou family's response. Hear this. Zhou Mubai breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the patriarch did not want to settle this problem with the strength of their Zhou family. Instead, he chose to report to Qianyuan Zhenzong and asked Qianyuan Zhenzong for help. Soon. For the first time, Qin Daoxian saw the communication formation in this world at Zhou's house. You know, a force wants to control the territory under its command, except that the force is enough to suppress the various forces in the territory. Transportation and communication are also two important aspects. Traffic. The higher the cultivator's cultivation, the more terrifying the escaping speed. For example, it is tens of thousands of miles from Chen's Shuanghu Island to Lingbei Island. Before the change, if Qin Daoxian came by boat, it would take about a month. And since he became a foundation establishment cultivator, he has learned to fly. In just a few hours, it is possible to cross distances that previously took a month to cross. This is only comparable to the speed of the Zifu cultivator. Jindan and nascent soul monks, their escape speed is faster. Although Guang'an Prefecture is still millions of miles away from the territory directly under the jurisdiction of Qianyuan Zhenzong. But let a Yuanian cultivator fly over from Qianyuan Zhenzong, it is estimated that it will take less than a day to arrive. As for the second element of controlling the forces under his command, communication. Qin Daoxian knew that this problem was not a problem at all after seeing Zhou Mingho and Qianyuan Zhenzong communicate with each other using the communication method. Compared to the piece of cyan scale that Luoli left him, it could only simply sense and communicate within 1,000 miles. The Zhou family's communication formation can even achieve real-time text communication. Just send the message of one party and send it in text, and you can quickly get the response of the other party. Of course. The speed of this response depends on the speed at which the other party makes a decision. For example, after Zhou Mingho passed the news to Qianyuan Zhenzong, he was like a stone sinking into the sea, and he never got a response. But Zhou Mingho and Zhou Mubai both knew it. The high-level officials of Qianyuan Sword Sect will definitely discuss countermeasures on this issue. Whether it is to send true monarch Yuanying to Guang'an Mansion or other decisions, Qianyuan Zhenzong will definitely respond to them, but sooner or later. Qianyuan Sword Sect. Inside a fairy family cave with a lot of spiritual energy. A lonely figure was sitting in the Cloud Fairy Palace. This figure was wearing the most ordinary cotton and linen robe, with beautiful long hair hanging down between the waist and buttocks, only tied with gold wire at the goose neck. She sat in the Asgard Palace, watching the cranes flying in the sea of clouds outside the window, dazed. At this time, the space behind her fluctuated like a water pattern, a young Taoist wearing a white robe with a bohemian expression, tearing apart the space and stepping out in one step. Sister, are you looking for me? The expression on the pretty face of the long-haired woman has never changed, and her voice has no waves. The little mouse in Sangzhou has been hiding for 400 years, and finally moved. Hear this. The initially impatient young man's expression changed immediately. Oh? That little mouse is finally willing to come out? My dear, in that secret space where birds don't shit, he hides for 400 years. Isn't he boring? The young man seemed very happy. If it was me, I would have to go out and make a lap when I die. Who do you call Lao Tzu? The long-haired woman frowned slightly. The young Taoist immediately handed over his hands to beg for mercy, saying, slip of the tongue, senior sister, You know that the group of beasts in Wan Xinghai are a bunch of scumbags. So what, I went to catch the mouse, goodbye sister. After the young Taoist finished speaking, the space was torn apart by him again, and then he stepped into the space and disappeared. Sensing the departure of the young Taoist, the long-haired woman looked at the sea of clouds outside the window again. When you catch this mouse, it's time to take back Azumo with all your might, master, your wish, your disciple will help you come true, youth, see? The long-haired woman said disappointedly. Inside the Zhou family discussion hall. It was the first time for the Zhou family that Chen Daoxian attended as an outsider. Chen Daoxian knew that all of this was related to the strength and potential he showed. If it wasn't for Zhou Mubai's statement that he had dragged a zombie with complete strength in the corpse formation, Zhou Mingho, the head of the Zhou family, would not have paid so much attention to him. In Zhou Mingho's eyes, Chen Daoxian's talent is even more terrifying than Zhou Mubai's. At least when Zhou Mubai was in the early stage of foundation building, he would never be able to fight against the cultivators of the Zifu, let alone the zombies who delayed the complete strength of the Zifu. If it weren't for his understanding of Zhou Mubai as a person, Zhou Mingho even thought that Zhou Mubai lied in front of him. How could a mere foundation building cultivator be so strong? Even though Chen Daoxian is a sword cultivator, this is too strong and completely unreasonable. The foundation establishment stage has surpassed a realm to compete with the Purple Palace stage. Anyway, the current Zhou Mubai can support Jindan cultivator for a while at most, and it is impossible to fight back and forth with the opponent. Everyone, the reply from Chenyuan sword sect is here. Zhou Mingho's first sentence made everyone including Chen Daoxian concentrate. Recently, the cultivators from the Zhou family's Purple House who were present were all restless when they heard the news that Shinju Jinren was still alive. After all, how much trauma the Shinjue rebellion caused to the Zhou family has been recorded in detail in the clan. Patriarch, below the main hall, an elder from the Zhou family cupped his hands and asked, I don't know how Chenyuan Jianzong responded. Chapter 151. Dispose of it yourself. Zhou Mingho replied. This. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other in dismay. What is self-disposal? It means that the Chenyuan sword sect is left alone, and Yu Guang'an House and other Cangzhou cultivators can figure it out for themselves? Zhou Mubai and Chen Daoxian frowned slightly. Based on their understanding of Chenyuan sword sect, it is logically impossible for the other party to say the words to deal with it on their own. Unless. Long line for big fish. The two looked at each other and immediately thought of this possibility. Shinjue Jinren is hiding behind the scenes now, so what if Chenyuan Jianzong sends a few Yuanying Jinjuan to Guang'an Mansion? The big deal is to exterminate this corpse. But it does not solve the trouble of Shenju Zhensen. Only wiping out the corpse chaos in Guang'an Prefecture will undoubtedly cure the symptoms but not the root cause. In this way, it is better to divide this battle line into two parts, light and dark. The cultivators of Guang'an Mansion confronted the corpse servants refined by Shinjue Jinren in the bright light. When Shinjue Jinren couldn't help but jump out in person, the secret hand arranged by Chenyuan Jianzong would be dispatched. Catch this mouse that has been hiding for 400 years. Only in this way can the problem of God Zhu Jinren be completely solved. Zhou Mingho understood this deep meaning, Zhou Mubai understood it, and Chen Daoxian understood it too. But it seems that the elders of the Zhou family didn't understand a little, and they all had an indignant expression. This time, Chen Daoxian immediately admired the person who made this decision by Chenyuan Jianzong. Only by acting like enough can you catch big fish. The group of Zhou family elders in the main hall who do not know the truth and are incensed are undoubtedly the best actors. Patriarch. Since Chenyuan Jianzong doesn't care about us, we don't have to beg Bai Lai to beg them. This matter, we Guang'an Mansion cultivator solved by ourselves, anyway. In the Zhenengguan battle, the Chenyuan Jianzong was extremely unfair to our Cangzhou cultivator. Speaking of this, everyone became more excited. The injustice of Zhenengguan campaign has always been a thorn in everyone's heart. Because Yi Wudao, the ancestor of the Yi family who fled before battle, not only was not executed, but only symbolically punished him for 100 years. This is no punishment, it's clear favoritism. Protect. Just because Yi Wudao has a good father who is the third elder in Qianyuan Jianzong. Otherwise, based on what Yi Wudao did, the major families in Cangzhou might directly unite to tear him apart. What about cultivator Jindan? The Cangzhou cultivators add up to more than 10 million people. Among them, there is no shortage of Tianjiao Zifu that is comparable to Zhou Mubai. Yi Wudao can stop one Zhou Mubai, can he stop the second one, and the third one? What's more, there are hundreds or thousands of cultivators in Cangzhou Zifu. He is a cultivator in the early stage of Jindan in Yi Wudao, how can he resist? But because of Yi Wudao's background and the decree of Qianyuan Jianzong, that Cangzhou cultivator could only smash his teeth and swallow it. Okay, Zhou Mingho stood up from the throne of the patriarch, since everyone thinks that our Guang'an cultivators can solve it on our own, it's better for me, the Zhou family, to take the lead. Together with the Yang family, the Wu family, and the Qin family on Shuanghu Island, we sent out invitations to invite colleagues from Guang'an Prefecture to discuss the formation of a coalition army. What do you think? This. The elders of the Zhou family just called him fierce, but when he thought that he was going to fight against the peerless murderer Shen Juezhen, he still felt a drumbeat in his heart. After all, at that time, the real Shen Jue who held the inheritance of the immortals, but the existence of killing Jindan was like killing a dog. There are so few Jindan cultivators in Cangzhou. Otherwise, in the other states of Wangxinghai, there would be very few Jindan cultivators like Cangzhou and several neighboring states. The Zhou family was also beaten by Shenjue Jinren back then. Relying on this fifth-order mountain protection formation, they forced their way to the arrival of reinforcements from the Qianyuan sword sect. This solved the danger of the Zhou family. Otherwise, the reinforcements of Qianyuan Jianzong would be delayed for a few days. The Zhou family disappeared in the history of Wanxinghai just like the other disappearing Cangzhou clans. After all, Shenjue Jinren did extremely terrifying things back then, and he gathered an army of loose cultivators under his hands to burn, kill and everywhere. Every time I went to a cultivator family, it was a meal of killing and robbing, and then setting fire to burn everything on the spiritual veins. It's utterly insane. In addition to not destroying the spiritual veins, there was nothing that Shenjue Jinren dared not do in those days. Even more so, the major families in Cangzhou united to form a coalition to destroy him, but found that this guy was more slippery than the loach. Whenever the moment of desperation is reached, Shenjue Jinren can always rely on the magical instruments inherited from the immortals to escape and save their lives. Made everyone extremely helpless. Now it seems Qianyuan Jianzong probably only seriously injured him back then, and did not catch and kill him. Zhou Mingho saw everyone hesitate, and his face suddenly sank. Why? Everyone was so noisy just now, and now they are all dumb and afraid of death. Hear this exhilaration. How can the elders of the Zhou family endure it? I saw an elder from the Zhou family jumping out of the crowd, swearing and swearing, if I, Zhou Mingyue, are afraid of death, I will only teach you to be killed by lightning. Boom boom boom. A muffled thunder sounded. This Zhou family elder actually made a great vow in public. This time, everyone was infected by his emotions, stood up one by one, and said loudly, no regrets. It's a big deal to fight with them. Yes. Fight with them. I'm afraid of a bird's egg. I was in Zenangwan back then, and I broke through in my life. I'm also afraid of a few little zombies. It's a joke. That is. Zhou Mingho saw the strong fighting spirit in everyone's eyes, and the smile in his eyes flashed away. Well done. Well done. It's about the emotion and expression that looks like death. Zhou Mingho nodded secretly in his heart. Out of the hall, Chen Daoxian handed farewell to Zhou Mucheng and said, it will take a month at the earliest to inform the colleagues of Guang'an, and it will probably take a few months to form a coalition army. The younger brother has to go home first, otherwise he will always be vaguely concerned. Zhou Mubai certainly knew what Chen Daoxuan's concern was referring to. Immediately comforted, "Brother Chen, don't worry, the Zhao family is on the right of my Lingbei Island, and your Chen family's Shuanghu Island is on the left of my Lingbei Island. Even if they want to go to your Chen family, they have to pass my Zhou family." "What?" "Having said that, if you don't go back, you will always feel uneasy, and you will be uneasy." Having said all that, Zhou Mubai couldn't hold back any longer, so he could only hold hands and say, "Take care all the way." "Well, brother Zhou is precious." "Say it." Chen Daoxian turned into an escape light and flew in the direction of Lingrui City. He hasn't forgotten that before he left Chen Xianhe alone in Lingrui City. A few days have passed now. I don't know if Chen Xianhe is still in Lingrui City. In terms of emotion and reason, he should go to Lingrui City to have a look first. Chen Daoxian had a hunch that fighting against the real Shinju would not happen overnight, even if there were secret hands arranged by Chen Yuan Jianzong. Because from the fact that this guy can hide for 400 years, it can be seen that this is a character who is wretched to the extreme. Without absolute certainty, it is impossible for him to end up in person. Chapter 152. After a few hours, Chen Daoxuan's escape light landed outside Lingrui City. Before he could enter Lingrui City, a Yang family cultivator who was waiting at the city gate recognized Chen Daoxian. This cultivator of the Yang family is in the middle of the year, and his appearance is Zhou Zheng, and he looks quite favorable. "Are you Chen Daoxian, your friend Chen Daoxian?" "Daoist is." Chen Daoxian didn't recognize who the other party was for a while, and he could only recognize the cultivator of the Yang family through his clothes. The middle-aged cultivator cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Fellow Daoist, please don't misunderstand me. This is the first time the two of us have met. I am under the order of the Patriarch, and we are waiting for fellow Daoists here." "Oh? Old Ancestor Yang's order?" Chen Daoxian moved in his heart. "Exactly, fellow Daoist, please," the middle-aged cultivator said and made a please gesture. Chen Daoxian nodded. "Dao Yu leads the way. This is Lingrui City, and because he is a master of art, he is not afraid of anyone pretending to be a Yang family cultivator to harm him." After a stick of incense, the escape of the two stopped in front of the Yang family land. This is the second time Chen Daoxian has come to the Yang family land. "Last time I came, he was only a cultivator at the chi-refining stage. Although his strength was not weak, he could even kill a female cultivator of the Izumo country in the early stage of foundation building with his bare hands. But compared with the current strength, there is no doubt a world of difference. After fighting with different enemies several times, Chen Daoxian has basically determined his upper limit of strength, which is probably different from the monks in the early days of Zifu. The only place he is currently worse than the early cultivator of the Zifu is probably on defense. In short, the current Chen Daoxian can barely be regarded as a slightly weak early Zifu cultivator. This is the foundation of forging the foundation of the strongest swordsmanship. Chen Daoxian also had a guess as to why the Yang family was looking for him. Undoubtedly, he was interested in him, the second sword cultivator in Guang'an Prefecture, and wanted to invest a sum in him in advance. The reason why the big family is standing still. In addition to the family background, the invisible personal connections are also another magic weapon for them to continue the family. For example, Zhou Mubai and Chen Daoxian experienced a life-and-death friendship. When the Zhou family was in trouble, Zhou Mubai begged to come to the door, and Chen Daoxian could just sit back and watch. Obviously not possible. That's what the Yang family was thinking at the moment. Although it is a little late to invest in Chen Daoxian, it is better than doing nothing at all, right? With Yang Linyuan's shrewdness, how could he not understand this truth? Soon, Chen Daoxian met Yang clan head again in front of Linghu, where he met Yang Linyuan last time. To Chen Daoxuan's surprise, besides the white-haired Yang Linyuan, there was also a white-haired old man who was chatting with Yang Linyuan. Beside the two, a beautiful woman stood beside them, like a maid. Chen Daoxian immediately recognized that the woman standing beside the two was none other than Yang Gongwan, a cultivator of the Yang family. Uncle 13. From a distance, Chen Daoxian called out. Heard. Chen Xianhe turned his head, glanced at Chen Daoxian, and then smiled at Yang Linyuan. Brother Yang, just said my nephew is here. Ha ha ha. Yang Linyuan laughed, stood up, and cupped his hands towards Chen Daoxian. Fellow Daoist Chen, stay safe. Senior Lao Yang is worried, and everything is fine for this junior. Chen Daoxian bowed his hands indifferently. Seeing Chen Daoxuan's expression, Yang Linyuan coughed and said, Weiner, why don't you apologize to fellow Daoist Chen? Saying that, she gave Yang Gongwan a look. Hearing this, Yang Gongwan bit her red lips lightly, then bowed her head and said, Weiner provoked the relationship between Chen and Wu a few days ago. Talking. He looked at Chen Daoxian with pitiful eyes. Seeing her sincere apology, the little grudge in Chen Daoxuan's heart disappeared. From Yang Gongwan's point of view, he could understand why the other party wanted to provoke the relationship between Chen and Wu. Because of the Lingrui city led by the Yang family, the supply of magic tools was basically provided by the Wu family. In this way, the Wu family undoubtedly mastered one of the lifelines of Lingde city. This made the Yang family quite uneasy, and it was urgent to find a new force to balance the Wu family's monopoly on the market of magical instruments in Lingzhou city. This new force is the Chen family. Therefore, Yang Gongwan wanted to provoke the relationship between the two families, and the purpose was to prevent the Chen and Wu families from joining forces to monopolize the market of magical instruments in Lingzhou city. But in Chen Daoxuan's view, Yang Gongwan's behavior is really naive. Because both the Chen family and the Wu family are famous for refining utensils. The reason why there is no major conflict between the two now is that the Chen family specializes in the low-end magic weapon market, while the Wu family's magic tools are mainly concentrated on first-order high-grade magic tools and second-order magic tools. And the Wu family's customer base is mainly family children. However, with the improvement of the Chen family's level of refining and the increase in the number of refining masters in the clan, it is a matter of time before the Chen and Wu families will conflict. Unless the Chen and Wu families can open up the market for instruments other than Guang'an House. But if you want to do business outside of Guang'an House, the requirements for family prestige are not ordinary. Otherwise, if you go to someone else's territory, you will be very likely to be suppressed. Currently in Guang'an Prefecture, only the Zhou family has the strength to expand their business to the entire Zhangzhou. Even the Yang family, the second largest family in Guang'an Prefecture, only monopolized the ship business in Guang'an Prefecture, and did not expand this business to other provinces. I've long forgotten some small things, Fairy Yang doesn't have to care anymore. Chen Daoxian arched his hands. Hearing this, Yang Linyuan laughed and said, yes, a little bit of grudge, just say it. But having said that, after all, my Yang family made a mistake first, and it's not enough to apologize. After that, he looked at Yang Gongwan. Weiner, why don't you take out the things? Oh. Yang Gongwan made a playful expression, and immediately took out a sword box from the storage bag. Opened the sword box in public. I saw a sword chi rising into the sky, and as the sword chi gradually subsided, a flying sword overflowing with spiritual light appeared in front of Chen Daoxian. Tier 3 flying sword. Chen Daoxian looked at Yang Linyuan in horror, and cupped his hands. Senior Yang, with all due respect, this apology is too precious, no merit will not be rewarded, please forgive this junior for not accepting it. Ugh, hearing this, Yang Linyuan sighed, it seems that fellow Daoist Chen still refuses to forgive my Weiner. This. Having said all that, it is impossible for him not to accept this apology. However, this is the third-order flying sword. And it is a third-order high-grade flying sword. If this flying sword was sold at the auction house, it would at least be able to fetch a sky-high price of more than 1 million spirit stones. This kind of rare treasure, the Yang family actually gave it away. You must know that the flying sword that Zhou Mubai used was only a third-tier high-grade sword. But in the blink of an eye, when he thought of the power of the third-order high-grade flying sword, Chen Daoxian was a little hard to hold on to himself. Although the third-order high-grade Feijian is worth more than 1 million spirit stones, it does not mean that you can buy it if you spend 1 million spirit stones. Because treasures of this level are of the type that can be encountered but not sought after. If you want to buy it, it depends on how lucky you are. Although I really want this flying sword in my heart. But Chen Daoxian still cast an inquiring look at Chen Xianhe. Chapter 153. Seeing that Chen Daoxian was silent, Yang Linyuan knew his concerns, cupped his hands, and said sternly, Chen Daoxian doesn't have to be concerned. My Yang family's move was indeed because Weiner acted recklessly a few days ago and wanted to apologize to fellow Taoists. Second, it is to form a good relationship with Chen Daoyu, and there is no other intention. Just for a good relationship? Yang Linyuan nodded, that's all. That's all there is to say. If Chen Daoxian refused again, he would be at a loss. He looked at the sword box that Yang Gongwan respectfully offered with both hands, and took out the third-order high-grade flying sword overflowing with spiritual light, and he couldn't help but feel emotional for a while. As a sword cultivator, Chen Daoxian is naturally a sword lover. This flying sword was the best quality flying sword he had ever encountered. Compared with the two natal flying swords he refined, there is no doubt that there is a difference between heaven and earth. Seeing Chen Daoxian accept the flying sword, Yang Linyuan stroked his beard and said with a smile, this flying sword has no name yet, and fellow Daoist Chen can give it a name, heard. Chen Daoxian looked at the body of the Feijian sword under the reflection of the Linghu Lake, emitting bursts of rainbow light, and his mind moved, look at its rainbow light, why don't you call it the Rainbow Light Sword? Rainbow Sword, good name. Yang Linyuan nodded. After accepting the gift from the Yang family, the atmosphere among the crowd suddenly became harmonious. It was unpleasant before, but it was completely over. Under chat, Chen Daoxian told Yang Linyuan what he saw on Lotus Island and the reply of Chenyuan Jianzong. Obviously. Although Yang Linyuan knew that something had happened to the Zhao family, he didn't know that the situation was so serious, and he didn't even know that the incident had alarmed Chenyuan Jianzong. Now, whether it was Chen Xianhe or the grandson and grandson of the Yang family, they were all speechless. Obviously, they were shocked by what Chen Daoxian said, and they couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. A long time. Yang Linyuan sighed and said, it's an eventful autumn. His tone was desolate, and he obviously felt sadness in his heart for the extermination of the Zhao family, who was also a big family in Guang'an Prefecture. Although his Yang family is stronger than the Zhao family, their strength is limited. If the Yang family was attacked this time, it might not be much better than the Zhao family. After all, his Yang family is also a purple mansion, and the other party has at least 2 purple mansion complete combat power, plus a group of Foundation Building Corps servants. If they have mental calculations, they may not be able to resist. Thinking of this, the grandparents of the Yang family suddenly felt a sense of urgency in their hearts. Not only Yang Linyuan. Chen Xianhe also felt a sense of horror in his heart. Compared with the Zhou family and the Yang family, the strength of the Chen family was simply weak. Although there is a combat power comparable to Chen Daoxian in the early days of Zifu. But although Chen Daoxian is strong, how can one person protect so many young monks and mortals in the Chen family? Thinking of this, Chen Xianhe couldn't help but worry. The grandsons of the Yang family and Chen Xianhe are now the only backbone, probably pinning their hopes on the coalition led by the Zhou family. This moment. It was only then that Yang Linyuan discovered that when something really happened, no matter what the layout and calculations were, it was not as useful as his tough strength. He believed that although the Zhou family would be nervous, they would never be afraid. At least they won't be afraid of 2 zombies with complete strength in the Purple Mansion. To tell the truth, these 2 zombies with the complete strength of Zifu, that is, relying on the advantages of the formation, can compete with Zhou Mubai. In normal circumstances, they are not Zhou Mabai's opponents at all. How could the Zhou family be afraid of such an opponent? In the final analysis, the only strength in this world is fundamental. After the Chen family uncle and nephew bid farewell, Yang Linyuan watched the two leave, and stood in the pavilion for a long time, reluctant to speak. Grandfather. I want to break through the Purple Palace period. Yang Gongwan's eyes were firm. Hearing this, Yang Linyuan's eyes softened and he said softly, "Are you waiting?" Yang Gongwan shook her head, "No wait, with my water spirit body, coupled with the practice of water attribute exercises, although it is not as good as the true essence after the sword will temper, it is much stronger than the monks of the same rank. Most importantly, I don't want to be helpless when the Yang family encounters the same thing in the future, and I can only watch your grandfather do your best." "Oh, my dear, it's the family that has delayed you," Yang Linyuan said with emotion. Yang Gongwan smiled and shook her head. Sky. A flash of light passed by at high speed. In the elusive light, Chen Daoxian and Chen Xianhe stood side by side on the flying sword with a sword light of about 10 feet long. Long silence. Chen Xianhe took the lead and said, "I didn't expect things to turn out like this." "Yes." Chen Daoxian nodded. Millions of Zhao's clansmen were destroyed in one day, and the real Shinjue is far more cruel and vicious than the rumors, and there are still loose cultivators who don't know the truth saying that he is a hero. Having said that, Chen Daoxian shook his head. For the actions of Shinjuezhen, anyone who has carefully understood him will definitely scoff at him. Although this person is far more powerful than a cultivator of the same level, he is definitely a cancer in Sangzhou and even the surrounding states. He gathered a group of loose cultivators back then to burn, kill, and loot the major immortal cultivators, not because of the uneven distribution of cultivation resources between loose cultivators and family cultivators, but for himself. Shinjue Zhenren cultivated a secret method of spiritual consciousness, which required a lot of spiritual medicine to restore spiritual consciousness. This is the root cause of his burning and plundering. Unlike the rumors of later generations, Shinjue Zhenren is a hero in the loose cultivator. It is for the loose cultivator to fight injustice, and it is also because of him that Chenyuan Jianzong will choose to attack the Cloud Country and strive for the benefit of the loose cultivator. This statement is completely nonsense. Chenyuan Jianzong attacked the country of Yunyun, although there were certain factors that passed on internal contradictions, but it was definitely not because of a mere real person. He did not have such a big face. Only. Everything about Shinjuezhen was strictly sealed by the major families. The reason for this is because the surviving major families lost too much in the chaos of God Ju that year, and they are shameless to publicize them everywhere. Blocking the news has become a matter of course. In this way, the loose cultivators had no choice but to use their brains to guess. As a result, all kinds of legends about the real person of Shinjue continue to circulate in the market. In fact, none of these legends are reliable. Chen Daoxian also read the ancient books of the Zhou family, and then he learned the truth of the chaos of the gods. Hear what Chen Daoxian said. Chen Xianhe nodded, his eyes were deep and said, "However, this time against the corpse tide, for us, is both a danger and an opportunity." Heard. Chen Daoxian moved in his heart. He suddenly understood what the opportunity in Chen Xian's mouth was referring to. This time, Guang'an Prefecture formed a coalition army to fight the corpse tide. The demand for magic tools must be huge. In normal times, the environment of Guang'an Prefecture is relatively stable, coupled with the constraints of Chenyuan Jianzong and Zhou family, generally few people dare to use force in Guang'an Prefecture. In this way, the necessity of magic tools is greatly reduced. Many scattered cultivators do not buy magic tools. The price factor is only one aspect. On the other hand, it is also related to the stable environment of Guang'an Prefecture. But it's different now. Guang'an is about to go to war. Let me ask, which cultivator dares to find trouble with this group of zombies empty-handed? Chapter 154. Besides, The Zhao family is a family famous for alchemy, and the alchemist in the family is second only to the Zhou family. Even from the perspective of the ratio of alchemists, the Zhao family is the number one alchemy family in Guangnan Prefecture. Now that the Zhao family has been destroyed, the medicine pill market in Guangnan Prefecture is almost half empty. Such a big market gap for medicinal pills needs someone to make up for it. Who will make up for it? Compared to the magic weapon market, the profit of the medicine pill market is even more terrifying. There was no alchemy inheritance in the Chen family before. Even if you want to get involved in it, there is no way. Now it is different. The Chen family has the inheritance of alchemy, and they are still training alchemists in batches. Perhaps, their Chen family can take a big profit in this gap in the medicine market. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxuan's originally depressed mood became cheered up again. In Wangxinghai and even Xian Yunzhu, the ups and downs of major cultivation forces are common. If Chen Daoxian feels, he can't feel it at all. All he has to do is to continuously grow the strength of the family. When the Chen family encounters the same thing, tell the enemy with iron-like strength that they have provoked the wrong object. Chen Daoxuan's escape was extremely fast. Less than half a day. Shuanghu Island is faintly in sight. Seeing the quiet and peaceful Shuanghu Island, Chen Daoxian and Chen Xianhe both breathed a sigh of relief. It was exactly what Zhou Mubai said. The outbreak of corpse chaos should be centered on the Zhao family and continue to spread outward. From the map of Guang'an. The next person who will be hit by the corpse tide is probably the Wu family. Because Wu's house is not far from Zhao's house, it is only a mere 10,000 miles away. The corpse chaos wants to spread to the Chen family on Shuanghu Island. In theory, it should cross the Wu family, Zhou family and Lingrui city that are in front of them. Therefore, Shuanghu Island is a relatively safe rear of Guangnan Prefecture for the time being. Of course, once a war breaks out, there is no such thing as absolute safety. After all, this is Wangxinghai. These zombies are omnipotent, they can attack from the sky, and they can invade the islands of major families from the underwater world. It's just that they don't usually do that. The reason is simple. Just like the war between monks, it is necessary to build a fairy city and make steady progress. Every immortal city built by monks can not only provide spiritual energy for the monk army, but also provide logistical support for the monk army. The logistics here refers to instruments, spirit armor, spirit talismans, all kinds of medicinal herbs, etc. There is no such logistical support. The combat effectiveness of the monk army will be sharply reduced to a very low level, not to mention aggression against others, even if it is strong enough if it is not beaten by others until it cannot find bay. The same is true for these inful things that need to be tempered by suffocation and restore their own consumption. If zombies want to continue fighting, of course they have to consume. What they consume is the corpse energy stored in the corpse pill. How the corpse chi came from, it was the chi of refining yin and evil spirits. Therefore, the corpse tide must advance steadily like the army of monks. Based on the third order yin meridian of the Zhao family, it will continue to attack the surrounding spiritual meridians and transform them into yin meridians. From this angle, bear the brunt, most likely the Wu family and the Zhou family. Of course, it cannot be ruled out that this group of zombies will give up Guang'an House and directly attack Cangzhou Xiancheng. But Cangzhou Xiancheng is the clan of the Yi family. The Yi family is the most powerful family in Cangzhou. Zombies with complete strength in the two purple houses want to trouble the Yi family, no doubt they are looking for death. Even if Shinjue Jinren left enough hands for the Sun brothers, it would be difficult to find trouble with Cangzhou Xiancheng in the first place. If it was Chen Daoxian, he would definitely take down Guang'an Mansion step by step. Then he transformed all the spiritual meridians of Guang'an Prefecture into yin meridians, refined the army of zombies, and attacked Cangzhou Xiancheng in one fell swoop. In this way, the entire Cangzhou can be turned into a zombie country step by step. Therefore, the first target the opponent will attack next is likely to be the Wu family. Because the Zhou family is too strong, they are not opponents at all. The Wu family is just right. It has a huge population and is not strong enough to pose a threat to the Sun brothers. It is the best target. Of course. The Zhou family will not wait for the other party to attack. Next, they will invite their colleagues from Guang'an Prefecture to form a coalition army and break through the corpse refining grounds on Lotus Island. Landed with delight. Qin Daoxian and Qin Xianhe once again set foot on the land of Shuanghu Island, feeling a burst of fulfillment in their hearts. Go and do your business, you'll go to the clan school to see. Qin Xianhe is now teaching Chen's children to learn Guiyuan Gong in ethnic studies. It seems that certain progress has been made. Thought about it. Qin Daoxian stopped Qin Xianhe and said, Uncle 13, I think the situation has changed now. The step-by-step training plan we planned before may have to be discussed in the long run again. What do you mean? Qin Daoxian nodded. What I mean is, take Tong My pill for the first batch of immortal seedlings with blessing characters to help them embark on the path of cultivation. This. Qin Xianhe frowned, then nodded, that's all it takes. He knew that now that the corpse was breaking out, Shuanghu Island would not know when it would be in danger. It's not enough to develop slowly and steadily as before, we have to make big strides forward. Including the 9-year compulsory training system established by Qin Daoxian before, it must also be cancelled. Continue to use the system of entering the factory at the age of 8. He knew that there would be a turmoil in Guang'an that would spread throughout the whole province. Although the Zhou family will form a coalition to destroy the land of corpse refining on Lotus Island. But with the chaos of Xinjiue that Qin Daoxian knew in ancient books, the zombies refined by the real people of Xinjiue would never be so easily exterminated by the monks of Guang'an Prefecture. The two sides are likely to break out into a protracted war. The Chen family must do everything possible to enhance the family's strength. As for being low-key and afraid of revealing his strength, they were all thrown aside by Qin Daoxian. Now, as long as the Sun brothers dare to attack Shuanghu Island with their corpse servants, I am afraid that the entire Shuanghu Island, except Qin Daoxian, will not be able to survive. This kind of life and death moment, but also a low-key development. Mr. Qin Daoxian shouldn't have hoped that the Sun brothers could not find the location of Shuanghu Island. What is the difference between this and stealing the bell? Thinking of this, Qin Daoxian immediately felt a sense of urgency. Qin Xianhe also knew the seriousness of the matter and immediately agreed with Qin Daoxian's suggestion. Daoxian, you can decide the family affairs in the future, and you don't need to ask my opinion again. Seeing that Qin Daoxian wanted to speak, Qin Xianhe raised his hand and said solemnly, I know that with the current strength of our Qin family, the possibility of wanting to survive this corpse chaos is extremely low, so we must recklessly strengthen the family strength. I'm afraid it'll drag you down. Uncle 13. You don't have to say anything, you just need to remember that you are the patriarch of the Qin clan now, and you are in the safety of the entire clan. Qin Xianhe raised his hand. Heard the words. Qin Daoxian thought of the Zhao family whose entire clan was slaughtered, and nodded solemnly, I see, Uncle 13. Chapter 155, 3 months later. In the courtyard of Lingfu. Qin Daoxian looked at the strange-looking cylindrical instrument in his hand, his face full of excitement. Sure enough. Qin Daoxian said excitedly. Ever since he obtained the alchemy inheritance and learned the above-mentioned alchemy surgery, Qin Daoxian suddenly wondered if he could learn from some methods from his previous life to refine elixirs. There are several methods of refining medicine pills in the world of immortal cultivation. The mainstream method is fire alchemy. Fire alchemy means that the alchemist uses the alchemy furnace to remove the impurities in the elixir a little bit with the two flames of civil and military, and finally combines the essence left by the elixir into elixir. To sum it up, there are probably 2 steps, first, removing impurities, and second, synthesizing it into pills. Unlike the alchemy, these 2 steps of alchemy are very difficult. Whether it is to remove the impurities in the elixir, or to finally synthesize the elixir into a pill, the cultivator needs to use his spiritual sense and infuriating qi carefully, and make no mistakes in the middle. Otherwise, the impurities will not be removed cleanly, and the result will be waste pills. Although it is said that the waste pill has a certain medicinal effect, but compared with the medicinal effect, the erysipelas is more terrifying. Eating waste pills to eat dead people is no joke. Similarly, the impurities in the elixir have been removed, and if the final synthesis of the pill is not mastered, it will also fall short. For example, if the heat is not well controlled, and the strong tongue of fire directly burns the elixir to dryness. In short, the failure rate of alchemists in refining medicine pills is often higher than that of alchemists. Theoretically speaking, a batch of medicinal pills can be refined into 10 pills at most. But even an experienced first-order high-grade alchemist would be difficult to refine 10 first-grade low-grade elixir in one furnace, and it would always be necessary to refine a few of them. It's not that the alchemist did it on purpose, but it was too difficult to make 10 pills. You know, to divide a pot of medicinal herbs into 10 parts, the alchemist needs to be distracted at the same time, and remove the impurities from each part of the elixir, and finally combine the 10 parts of the elixir into elixir. In this process, no mistakes can be made. This kind of perverted request is difficult for even a senior alchemist to meet. Enchen Daoxuan's whim. In the first step of alchemy, a special instrument called a centrifugal wall breaker was used to remove the impurities in the elixir. The working principle of this instrument is to use the different qualities of different components in the elixir to stratify the different components under the high-speed rotation of the centrifugal wall breaker. Among them, impurities are divided into one layer, and the essence of elixir is divided into another layer. Finally, use gravity to take out the layered elixir essence. In this way, the alchemist does not need to be distracted and control the flame to remove impurities. Waiting for the essence of the elixir to leak out directly under the centrifugal wall breaker, and then synthesizing it into a pill is done. And the alchemist can also control the speed at which the essence of the elixir leaks. For example, some alchemists can synthesize pills at a high speed, so they can adjust the speed at which the essence of the elixir leaks faster by controlling the valve. Some alchemists are slow in synthesizing pills, so they can slow down the speed a bit, which is very humane. In this way, there will be no more wasteful refining of medicinal pills. A traditional alchemist removes the impurities in the 10 pills at the same time, and then concocts 10 pills at the same time. The kind of alchemist that Chen Daoxian envisioned would only need to concentrate on refining one medicinal pill, and the centrifugal wall breaker would do the rest. Under such conditions, just put a pig demon to operate, and it is estimated that practice makes perfect after a long time. After 3 months of experiments, Chen Daoxian finally refined this special magic weapon. According to the function of the centrifugal wall breaker he refined, when refining different medicinal herbs, the alchemist only needs to equip the corresponding number of centrifugal wall breakers according to the quantity of elixir. It is like refining the lowest level first-order low-grade spiritual pill, the Qi Hui pill. 3 elixir are required. At this time, only 3 centrifugal wall breakers are needed to extract the essence of the elixir at the same time. Finally, the essence of the spiritual liquid in the 3 centrifugal wall breakers is taken out from the bottom of the instruments, and then combined into a pill. Greatly improved the alchemy efficiency and success rate of alchemists. And these 2 points are directly related to the profit of the pill. If other alchemists refine a pot of elixir, the success rate is 70%, and you are 100%, the profit gap is huge. The success rate of a pot of elixir is 70%. If the cost is 100 spirit stones, the price is 50 spirit stones, and the profit is 250 spirit stones. If the success rate is 100%, the profit is 400 spirit stones, and the profit rate has suddenly increased by 60%. In addition to the improvement in the efficiency of alchemists, the profit margin is definitely far higher than that of the Qin family's Hongyin magic tool factory, which will become the second pillar industry of the Qin family. It is said that alchemists are the most profitable industry, and they are right. Chen Daoxian secretly said. Beautifully put the centrifugal wall breaker and the related jade slips for refining this magic tool into the storage bag. Chen Daoxian stood up. It is too late to popularize this magic tool now. Because according to the agreement, today happened to be the day when the Zhou family invited colleagues from Guang'an to discuss the formation of a coalition army. Such a long time has passed. With the ability of the Zhou family, it must have been notified to the various families and loose cultivators in Guang'an Prefecture. The annihilation of the entire Zhao family caused a huge panic among the scattered cultivators in Guang'an Prefecture. After all, in the eyes of the loose cultivators, the Zhao family is the second largest family after the Zhou and Yang families, and the number of cultivators in the family is almost the same as that of the Wu family. Such a big family, if it is destroyed, it will be destroyed. Not to mention other small families and loose cultivators. This moment, everyone was apprehensive. There is no impermeable wall in the world, and the news that the Zhao family in Guang'an Prefecture was exterminated soon spread throughout Zhangzhou. Even the reason for the destruction of the Zhao family was deliberately spread by the Zhou family. The chaos of corpses, the real person, and all kinds of information that made people's eyebrows jump, stimulated the major families of Guang'an Prefecture to restless. Just when the heart is floating, Qianyuan Zhenzong sent a message again, turning Zhangzhou into a new war zone. This time, Zhangzhou and other Wanxinghai monks will record their military exploits according to the strength and number of zombies killed. At that time, Qianyuan Zhenzong will send special military record personnel to come to Zhangzhou to record the military exploits. This news immediately caused an uproar in the entire Zhangzhou cultivation world. Qianyuan Zhenzong really didn't care, and took this corpse mess as a test for Zhangzhou cultivators. Some people of insight can see that there is a certain degree of military training in this. As for why Qianyuan Zhenzong wanted to train troops in Zhangzhou, its purpose is self-evident. Izumo country. Zhenangguan. For more than 50 years, Zhangzhou cultivators lost Zhenangguan, which has never been forgotten. On the contrary, with the victories of other fronts, the loss of Zhenangguan was particularly dazzling. Coupled with the loss of Jinan Pass, it poses a serious threat to the defense system built by Qianyuan Zhenzong. Therefore, in terms of emotion and reason, Qianyuan Zhenzong is bound to take back Zhenangguan. Before that, the suppression of the corpse chaos in Guang'an was just a small test for the Zhangzhou cultivators. If the mere corpse can't be resolved, let alone the recovery of Zhenangguan. Anyway, most of the cultivators in the outside world think so. As for Shinjue Jinren, it was ignored by Qianyuan Zhenzong intentionally or unintentionally. Chapter 156. Limba Island. When Chen Daoxian arrived at Lingbei Island, he found that the port of Guang'an was already seriously congested. This was the time when he had seen the most ships in Guang'an port. Although there are usually too many of these ships. But at this moment, the sails of Guang'an port are almost larger than the city circle of Guang'an, stretching hundreds of miles on the sea. Feeling the solemn atmosphere of Guang'an Prefecture, Chen Daoxian took a deep breath and flew towards the Zhou family's residence in Xianqing of Guang'an Prefecture. For the sake of convenience, Guang'an Prefecture directly lifted the Forbidden Air formation today. Chen Daoxian remembered that the last time Guang'an Mansion came into contact with the air-forbidding formation was when the mermen attacked Guang'an Mansion. It's just that at that time everyone was playing with the mentality of watching a play. But this time, everyone was obviously not in the mood to watch the play. After all, the bones of the millions of Zhao family members are not yet cold. The facts of Shui Linlin told them that this time, the catastrophe of the monks in Guang'an Prefecture is coming. The light flashed away. Landed at Zhou's residence in the blink of an eye. Speaking of which, this is the second time Chen Daoxian has come to the Zhou family's residence. The last time he came here, he was looking for Zhou Mubai to seek Chen Xian's method of building a foundation. This time, it was for the common destiny of the monks in Guang'an. Although Chen Daoxian knew it well, Qianyuan Zhenzong probably arranged a secret hand. But he knew better that Qianyuan Zhenzong might sacrifice the monks of Guang'an House in order to destroy the real Shinjue. They are not only the front line on the bright side, but also the bait to lure the gods. If you think that Qianyuan Zhenzong has arranged a secret hand, the monks of Guang'an House can sit back and relax, and it is estimated that they will not even know how they died. This point, Zhou clan head and Zhou Mubai also saw clearly. Therefore, their faces are very solemn at the moment, and they don't seem to have a backhand at all. The foundation building cultivator in Guang'an Mansion couldn't help but feel heavier when he saw the expression on the Zhou family's ancestor. Brother Zhou. Seeing Zhou Mubai, who was welcoming the fellow practitioners in front of the resident palace dojo, Chen Daoxian bowed his hands and said, Brother Chen. Seeing Chen Daoxian, Zhou Mubai, who had been on the verge of life and death, showed a smile and said, Go ahead and sit down and talk later. Okay. Chen Daoxian nodded and walked into the palace. Step into the palace. The interior is almost full of monks. Although this palace is extremely huge, normally it can accommodate tens of thousands of monks. But this time, more base-building monks came to Guang'an, estimated to be nearly 50,000. This time, almost all of the foundation-building cultivators in the loose cultivator group came. There is no way, the psychological impact of the destruction of the Zhao family was too great, and everyone was looking for a backbone at this moment. The powerful Zhou family undoubtedly has the qualifications to be the backbone. As for the Guang'an Immortal League, it is completely ignored by everyone. Usually it's okay to go to Lingzhou City to do business, but when it's time to work hard, you have to look at the Zhou family. No monk is a fool in this matter. Followed Chen Daoxian into the hall. The cultivators who recognized him gave him a place, bowed their heads slightly, and showed a respectful attitude. This is the second sword cultivator in our Guang'an prefecture. Right. I heard that he is a monk from a small family. Really terrifying talent. Everyone communicated with each other and talked a lot. In fact, there is no need to listen carefully, just by looking at the expressions of the crowd, Chen Daoxian knew that they were talking about him. But Chen Daoxian didn't care at all. With his current strength, he doesn't care about these discussions anymore. Before he knew it, he was no longer on the same level as the Foundation establishment monks present. Even if it is the most basic real essence, Chen Daoxian's real essence is far higher than that of the late Foundation building cultivator in terms of quality and quantity. Not to mention the bonus of Kendo realm to strength. For various reasons, Chen Daoxian now stands at the height of a cultivator of the Zifu. Was thinking. A monk from the Zhou family trotted over, bowed his hands at Chen Daoxian, and said, Senior Chen, where is your position? This Zhou family cultivator is also a cultivator in the early stage of foundation building, so he actually called him senior. Chen Daoxian knew that all this was a change brought about by strength. If he is not a sword cultivator, but a cultivator in the early stage of foundation establishment, then he is no different from other foundation cultivators in the hall. Not to mention being invited to the high platform of the main hall. A discerning person can see that those who can sit on the high platform are either strong or have a deep family background. There are only a few people in that Chen Daoxian knows. They were Zhou Mingho, the head of the Zhou family, Ong Linyuan, the head of the Yang family, Wu Guangyi, the head of the Wu family, and a Zifu cultivator whom Chen Daoxian had never seen before. It was estimated that he was a Zifu loose cultivator. You must know that it is quite rare for a scattered practitioner to cultivate to the Purple House. At least it is quite rare in Wangxinghai, but it is very common in the battlefield of Izumo. The one in front of him seems to have come back from the battlefield of Izumo on purpose. Because Chen Daoxian was on him, he could feel an aura very similar to Zhou Mucheng. That is a kind of murderous and evil spirit left after a long-term fight. With this murderous aura, just staring at an ordinary foundation cultivator can make the foundation cultivator feel weak. But this murderous aura had no effect on Chen Daoxian. He is someone who has even fought against the zombies who have completed the Purple Mansion. Even if he is far from being the opponent of the Zifu complete zombie, Chen Daoxian can no longer be suppressed by this level of momentum. Even Chen Daoxian could hold Zhou Mubai's aura, let alone the Zifu cultivator in front of him. Glancing at Chen Daoxian, the cultivator of Zifu who was wearing a red Taoist robe, full of red hair, and a face of wanton insolence laughed loudly, It is said that in addition to Zhou Mubai, our Guang'an residence has a second sword cultivator. See you today, really extraordinary. Brother Zhang is joking, is there anything ordinary about Jianshou? Zhou Mingho said with a smile. Yes. Of course there is. The cultivator of Zifu, who was called Brother Zhang by Zhou Mingho, shook his head. Jianshou is also divided into strong and weak. Although Jianshou claims to be the number one in attacking at the same level, it is not absolutely invincible at the same level. There are ordinary cultivators like me who can rival sword cultivators of the same level. Speaking of this, he paused, isn't the servant of Shinjue Jinren a typical example? Everyone was silent when they heard him say that God is a real person. Obviously. Shinjue Jin is a taboo for everyone. After all, the damage this person once brought to the family here is too great. Chen Daoxian walked up to the crowd, bowed his hands in a salute, and said, Daoxian has seen all the seniors. Take a seat. Zhou Mingho said with a smile. Chen Daoxian cupped his hands again and sat on the seat. His seat was arranged between Wu Guangyi and Zhou Mingho, the second position from the top. Sitting high on the throne of the main hall, looking down at the monks below, Chen Daoxian couldn't help but feel a different feeling in his heart. Today's seat not only symbolizes strength, but also the status of each family in Guang'an in the future. Unconsciously, the Chen family on Shuanghu Island has come to where it is today under the influence of Chen Daoxian. Chapter 157. You fellows. Inside the main hall. Zhou Mingho, the head of the Zhou family, resounded throughout the audience, and immediately suppressed the buzzing discussion below. Chen Daoxian sat on the throne of the high platform, looking at the dark crowd below, silent. Seeing that the hall has returned to quiet, Zhou Mingho nodded and continued, everyone should know that the entire Zhao family was destroyed 3 months ago. Today, I, the Zhou family, the Yang family, the Wu family, and the Chen family, invite all of you to come here, just to discuss how to solve the corpse on Lianhua Island. Mess. If you have any opinions, you can put them forward now. The words fall. There was another quarrel below. Cough. The mana was agitated, and everyone felt their whole body tighten slightly, and the hall became quiet again. Zhou Laozu, at this time, a loose cultivator in the later stage of foundation building, stood up and cupped his hands. Since our Guang'an people are gathered here today, we must be willing to obey the leadership of the Zhou family. So, what to do next? The Zhou family just comes up with the Articles of Association, and they'll just do it. It's extremely, your Zhou family said, we will do it accordingly. Right. The response below became a chorus. Seeing this scene, Zhou Mingho nodded with satisfaction and said, that being the case, I suggest that our Guang'an monks form a coalition army, which will be led by my Zhou family. And invite the powerful monks from Guang'an Prefecture to be the leaders, command this army of monks, and wipe out the corpses on the Lotus Island together. Okay. That's a good move. That's a good idea. In the main hall, the cultivators kept nodding their heads. Chen Daoxian didn't need to look at it to know that those who took the lead in speaking among these loose cultivators were basically arranged by the Zhou family deliberately. Of course. In essence, everyone hopes to follow the Zhou family and survive this catastrophe safely. Otherwise, the monks in Guang'an Mansion are not fools, how could they find a few supporters to make them follow him? Since everyone agrees to form a coalition army, then I hereby announce that the Guang'an Prefecture Coalition Force will be officially established immediately. Say it. Zhou Mingho continued, cultivators who are interested in joining the coalition army can sign up to join the army at my Zhou family cultivator after this meeting. Although they are not on the front line of the Izumo kingdom in this battle against the corpse tide, they can also obtain military exploits, said. He pointed to the red-haired Taoist beside him and said loudly, this is Dao Yu Zhang, who was transferred from the front line by Chenyuan Jianzong, who is responsible for recording everyone's military exploits. Many of the loose cultivators present have been to the battlefield of Izumo. Naturally know the military merit system of Chenyuan Jianzong. It can be said that the military merit system of Qianyuan sword sect is the biggest reason why one Xinghai loose cultivator can rise in just 400 years. Otherwise, with the monopoly of the cultivators in Wangxinghai on the resources of the cultivators, let alone the rise of the loose cultivators, even the aura of ordinary cultivation cannot be guaranteed. The Taoist surnamed Zhang heard the words, stood up, bowed his hands to everyone, and then sat down. Everyone seemed to be unfamiliar with this cultivator of the Z resident surnamed Zhang, and after looking at him curiously, they stopped paying attention. Everyone still trusts the fairness of Qianyuan Jianzong's record of military exploits. This is the foundation of Qianyuan Jianzong's attack on Izumo, and there can be no problems. Look, everyone. Zhou Minghe waved his sleeves and saw a vivid map of light and shadow appearing in everyone's sight over the hall. Chen Daoxuan's eyes narrowed, and he immediately recognized that this map of light and shadow was the map of Guang'an Prefecture. The center of the map is Limba Island at the foot of everyone. Lingbi Island is highlighted on the light and shadow map. Except Lingbei Island, the east of the map is the Lotus Island occupied by the corpses, and the northwest of the Lotus Island is the Wu family's Fengwu Island. The three islands of Lingbei Island, Wujia Fengwu Island and Lianhua Island of Zhou's family just formed a zigzag-shaped terrain on the map. Yang's Jinwu Island is above Lingbei Island, which is due north. As for the Shuanghu Island of the Qin family, it is the farthest from everyone, and it is located in the rear of Guang'an Prefecture, which is due west of Lingbei Island. Theoretically, for the corpse tied on Lotus Island to spread to the Qin family's Shuanghu Island, the three defense lines of the Wu family, the Zhou family and the Yang family must be broken. With the Sun brothers' mere two purple houses, it is obviously impossible to achieve. Inside the main hall, Zhou Minghe continued, according to the terrain, I divided Guang'an Prefecture into 5 defense areas, namely the Central Defense Area, the Eastern Defense Area, the Southern Defense Area, the Northern Defense Area, and the Western Defense Area. Zhou Minghe paused. You can also see from the map that the Eastern Defense Zone has direct contact with Lotus Island, and will also be the front line of our coalition to fight against the corpse tied on Lotus Island. Therefore, the commander of this defense must have extraordinary strength. Therefore, I recommend my Zhou family Tianjiao Zhou Mubai to be the commander of this defense area. After, Zhou Minghe looked around the people in the hall. Everyone nodded. The shadow of the famous tree, Zhou Mubai assumed the post of the commander of the Eastern Defense Zone, and no one objected. In fact, even if Zhou Gol served as the commander of the coalition, no one would object. After all, Zhou Mubai's strength is there, and he was able to rank in the Zifu Tianjiao list at the age of less than 100 years old. His achievements were all killed by the flying sword in his hand. Seeing that there is no objection from the crowd, Zhou Minghe continued to announce, the Central Defense Zone will be located on Lingbei Island, and I will be in charge of the old man himself, and the commander of the Southern Defense Zone will be Zhou Mingyue, the third elder of the Zhou family. The Northern Defense Area is led by Yang Linyuan, Yang Daoyu. As for the Western Defense Area, Zhou Minghe paused, Chen Daoxian Chen Daoyu will be the leader. Boom! It is good to say that in the end, the commander of the Western Defense Zone suddenly caused an uproar off the field. Immediately, some monks stood up against it. Zhou Laozu, we don't have any opinion on the arrangement of your first 4 defense zone commanders, but the candidates for the commander of the Western Defense Zone are still up for discussion. Yeah, old ancestor Zhou, although Daoyu Chen is a sword cultivator, but after all, he is only a foundation-building cultivator. Why not send a cultivator from the Zhou family to be the commander of the Western Defense Zone? Patriarch Zhou, fellow Daoist Chen, Lei Zhen, have a straight temper, don't take offense, I think, isn't this a nonsense? That is. Let's choose the senior Zifu from the Zhou family to be the commander of the Western Defense Zone. Chen Daoxian couldn't help frowning when he saw the indignant rants of the monks in Guang'an Mansion. He didn't know why he became the commander of the Western Defense Zone. Although the Western Defense Zone is in the rear, basically there will be no wars, but it is a bit difficult to convince the commander to have a foundation-building cultivator assume the position. It is also a loss that Chen Daoxian is a sword cultivator, and his combat power is far superior to that of the cultivators of the same rank. Otherwise, some cultivators of the Foundation establishment period might come out and ask him for advice. As long as Chen Daoxian is defeated, even old ancestor Zhou cannot continue to push him to be the commander of the Western Defense Zone. Seeing that everyone was so opposed to Chen Daoxian as the commander of the Western Defense Zone, Zhou Minghe also had a headache. Let Chen Daoxian serve as the commander of the Western Defense Zone, and Zhou Minghe naturally has his own considerations. Chapter 158, Compared to the other four zones. The Western Defense Zone is the least likely to encounter war, and there are no decent big families in the west of Lingbei Island, let alone the cultivators of the Zifu. If you want to take care of the Western Defense Area, you can only send cultivators from the Zifu from the Zhou family. Only. How can the Zhou family dare to divide too much of the Zifu battle power out? You must know that it is not only the Sun brothers who are full of strength in the Purple Mansion, but also the peerless murderer Shin Juzhenren. At that time, once the war erodes, Lingbei Island and other spiritual veins in the Zhou family's jurisdiction were attacked, and the Zhou family might not even be able to recruit the cultivators of the Zifu. Thus, it might be better not to split up at the beginning, but to concentrate on the eastern and central zones. Especially the Eastern Defense Zone headed by Zhou Mubai. Say it again. The main purpose of setting up the Western Zone is not combat. It is to prevent this group of sinister things from passing through the Wangxinghai underwater world and attack the rear islands of Guang'an Prefecture, disrupting the deployment of Guang'an Prefecture's coalition forces. In this way, the strength requirements for the Western Defense Zone are not so high. With Chen Daoxuan's strength, he is fully qualified for this position. Without any choice. After Zhou Minghe's voice transmission communicated with Chen Daoxian, he said with a tough attitude, "Since you agree to join the coalition army, you must abide by the rules set by my Zhou family, otherwise, you should ask for another one." This time, everyone is no longer noisy. They gathered here, not to seek shelter from the Zhou family. Now in the entire Guang'an mansion, except for the Zhou family, no other family can give them a sense of security. Now look at old ancestor Zhou's anger, how everyone dared to talk. But there are always those who are not afraid of death. Lei Zhen is a typical example of a loose cultivator who is not afraid of death. Seeing him jumping out of the crowd, he cupped his hands and said, "Ancestor Zhou, everyone, I am willing to join the coalition, but I am unwilling to accept the leadership of a monk in the early stage of foundation building. They all say that swordsmen attack Wushuang, and I have not learned Lei Zhen before." Saying that, he looked at Chen Daoxian with burning eyes. "Lei Zhen, you bastard!" Zhou Minghe was very angry with him. But thinking of Lei Zhen's reputation among loose cultivators, it's not easy to drive him out at this moment. After all, this time to exterminate the corpse tide, the cultivators of Guang'an Mansion must work together, especially the large number of loose cultivators. And Lei Zhen is one of the representative figures in the foundation building scattered cultivator. This moment, Chen Daoxian knew that he could no longer be silent. To a certain extent, the division of several major defense zones in Guang'an Prefecture is also the sphere of influence of the major families of Guang'an Prefecture in the future. Unconsciously, the Chen family has reached the point where they can divide the cake under the hands of the Zhou family. Have to say, compared with the time when he and Chen Xianhe carefully visited the immortal city of Guang'an Mansion, the change was too great. Chen Daoxian knew that all of this stemmed from his own strength and potential, not the strength of the Chen family. If not, how does the Zhou family push a cultivator in the early stage of foundation building to be the commander of the Western Defense Zone? Think of this. Chen Daoxian stood up from the throne on the high platform, his voice was soft, but it rang in everyone's ears. "Fellow Taoist Lei Zhen, right, heard." Lei Zhen cupped his hands and grinned, "Exactly. I don't know what kind of strength you think is qualified to be the commander of the Western Defense Zone." This. Lei Zhen was stunned. He just felt that Chen Daoxuan's cultivation was lower than his, so he rejected him as the commander of the Western Defense Zone from his heart. But Lei Jin knew that Chen Daoxian should be stronger than him in terms of strength. At this point, just look at Zhou Mubai. The first floor of the Purple Mansion will be able to beat the Purple Mansion to death in the later stage. On the third floor of the Purple Mansion, it was 1 against 4, and 2 of the Purple Mansion were complete. Not only that, with 1 enemy and 4, you can also press the opposite side to fight. One can imagine how terrifying Jian Shou is. In a heads-up match, Lei Jin is naturally not an opponent, but he doesn't admit it, and said in front of everyone, "It's nothing, as long as your strength can convince me." He was talking about convincing, not defeating him. The difference here is huge. Chen Daoxian even hung him up and hammered him, but he was not convinced, but it was still useless. Of course, at that point, the other loose cultivators wouldn't continue to accompany Lei Jin. After all, other scattered cultivators were dissatisfied with Chen Daoxian's position as the commander of the Western Defense Zone, which was based on a lack of understanding of his strength. If Chen Daoxian's strength is strong enough. Of course, no one objected. In the final analysis, as the commander of the major defense areas, it is still the individual strength of the monk. In this regard, family heritage has to stand aside. For example, in the Wu family, no one is the commander of the major defense areas. After all, the strongest Wu family is just an ordinary foundation-building cultivator. Putting it in front of the Zifu cultivator is simply not enough to see. Chen Daoxian nodded. "Since that's the case, it's better for you and me to discuss it." "Okay, have fun." Lei Jin shouted, "Go, this place is too small to be used, you can go out with me." Heard. Chen Daoxian shook his head. Seeing this, Lei Jin sneered, "Why, you are afraid." "Do not." Chen Daoxian said indifferently, "I think it's pretty good here, there's no need to go out so troublesome." "It's good here." Lei Jin frowned, "What do you mean?" "It's no fun, are you going to fight?" With that said, Chen Daoxian flew to the center of the hall, took out the flying sword of life, and kept spinning around him. Lei Jin was agitated by him, and he didn't care that this was the inside of the main hall. Directly, the imperial envoy Feijian attacked him. Who knows, Feijian pierced Chen Daoxian's figure, but not even a drop of blood came out. Not good. Lei Jin was vigilant in his heart, raised his consciousness to the limit, desperately trying to find the trace of Chen Daoxian, but found nothing. Next moment, a voice entered Lei Jin's ears. "Too slow." When the words fell, a mouthful of Feijian Jianmang was swallowed, hovering on Lei Jin's neck, and a strand of hair slowly fell. Chen Daoxian stood less than 3 meters away from him. Spike! At the beginning, Chen Daoxian used the technique of transforming his body into sword light to deal with the zombie, but it was difficult to cause damage to the opponent. But to deal with the Foundation Establishment cultivator, it is simply a one-sided killing. Lei Jin didn't even react at all, and was put on his neck by Feijian. If the two really fight, doesn't it mean that Chen Daoxian can kill him with a single sword? Thinking of this, Lei Jin couldn't help shivering. I thought he was at the top level among the Foundation Establishment cultivators, if not the strongest. But unexpectedly, Chen Daoxian was defeated by a sword. This feeling is very uncomfortable. Although Lei Jin did not use all means, why did Chen Daoxian use all means? In this way, the real strength gap between the two may be even greater. Are you convinced? Chen Daoxian took the flying sword of his life back to the Sea of Qi in his dantian and asked. Hearing this, Lei Jin bowed his hands in a salute and said, "Master Chief Kendo Wushuang, your subordinates are naturally convinced." Chapter 159. The Zhou family's work efficiency is very high. Soon, the matter of the Guang'an Prefecture allied forces was completed by the Zhou family. The registration of Guang'an monks to join the army is also proceeding in an orderly manner. The residence of the Zhou family in Guang'an Prefecture. Inside a fancy fairy palace. Here, for the time being, it is the headquarters of the Guang'an Prefecture allied forces. Within it, The commanders of the 5 defense zones and the cultivator Zhang Zifu, who counted the military exploits, sat together to discuss the specific matters of the coalition forces. The one sitting in the first place was naturally Zhou Mingho, the head of the Zhou family and the commander of the Guang'an Prefecture coalition forces. Zhou Mingho glanced at the crowd with brows, and frowned. This coalition seems to be very powerful, but there are far more problems than we imagined. He paused. Although the specific number of the coalition forces has not yet been determined, the military expenditure must be an astronomical sum. Just like the war among mortals. The monk army also needs to consume military expenses. The military expenditures here include the consumption of personal instruments, medicinal pills, magic talismans, large-scale war instruments, array materials, spiritual meridian stations, and so on. Although Qianyuan Jianzong provided a military merit system for the monks of Guang'an House, which could offset part of the military expenses. However, the major families in Guang'an Prefecture must also make a big deal of blood, especially the Zhou family who took the lead. In fact, it is normal to think about it. During the period of stability in Guang'an Prefecture, the Zhou family occupied the greatest interests, and when the catastrophe came, the Zhou family must also bear the greatest responsibility. Otherwise, once Guang'an Prefecture falls, the Zhou family will lose more than just the military spending. I heard this. Yang Linyuan on the side said, I wonder how many spirit stones Zhou Daoyu can take out. Zhou Mingho glanced at him, thought for a moment, and said, our Zhou family can take out 40,000 spirit stones for this military expense, heard. Yang Linyuan shook his right hand slightly and sighed. In this case, Guang'an Xianmeng are also willing to take out 10 million spirit stones as military expenses. As he said that, he bowed his hands to everyone and said, my Guang'an Immortal Alliance has spent a lot of money to build Spirit Day City. 10,000 spirit stones are already the greatest sincerity. Please don't dislike it. After that, I apologized again. When Chen Daoxian, who was sitting with them, heard this, he suddenly felt that the chair under his was quite hot, and he was a little restless. How does this make him answer? One family produced 400 million spirit stones, the other 100 million spirit stones. When did the spirit stone use billions as a unit? Chen Daoxian finally understood why the big family despised the low-end magic weapon market. In exchange, his Chen family has so many spirit stones, and he doesn't look down on the low-end magic weapon market. The low-end magic weapon market earns tens of millions of spirit stones a year. Can that be called making money? Shabby. He lowered his head, feeling out of tune with everyone here. Fortunately, everyone knew the situation of his Chen family on Shuanghu Island, and they didn't expect them to pay this military expense. The reason why Chen Daoxian can sit here is not so much that his strength is amazing, but his potential is amazing. There are very few short-sighted people who can become the patriarch of a big family in Wanxinghai. Not Zhou Mingho, nor Yang Linyuan. They all know that Chen Daoxian's achievements in the future are bound to be even more amazing than they are now. Whether it is the Zhou family or the Yang family, showing favor to Chen Daoxian and the Chen family is investing in the future. At this point. Very important for big family. The connections may not work in normal times, but at the critical moment, they might be able to save the family. The chaos of the gods. So many families have been annihilated. Why did the Zhou family wait for the timely rescue of Qianyuan Jianzong, just because the Zhou family was lucky? Not necessarily. Seeing Yang Linyuan's statement, Zhou Mingho nodded and continued, in this case, we will have a total of 500 million military spending. Although this military expenditure is not much, it is enough to support it for a period of time. Hearing this, everyone nodded. That being the case, I will simply make a division of this military expenditure. Hear this. Everyone cheered up. Especially Chen Daoxian, he is the commander of the Western Defense Area, in charge of the security inspection and defense work in the western area of Guang'an Prefecture. There will inevitably be a part of the military expenses, but I don't know if I can get 10 million spirit stones. Chen Daoxian also knew. In this battle, the eastern defense zone headed by Zhou Mubai will definitely receive the most military expenditure. Because in the early stage, only their defense zone had to fight directly against the zombies on Lotus Island. As for the other defense areas, the main purpose is to prevent the corpses from Lianhua Island from jumping off the wall. Caused internal instability in Guang'an Prefecture. In other words, the only real fighting force in Guang'an Prefecture was the eastern defense zone led by Zhou Mubai. The other defense areas are reserve forces, especially the western defense area in charge of Chen Daoxian, which is a guard force. He was satisfied that he could get 10 million spirit stones for the military. See everyone cheer up. Zhou Mingho opened his mouth and said, Mubai's eastern defense zone is divided into 250 million spirit stones because it has to fight directly against the corpses on Lotus Island. Dao Yuyang's northern defense area is backed by Lingrui City, and there is no need to spend military expenses on garrisoning the spiritual veins, so it is a little less, only 70 million spiritual stones. As for my Lingbei Island, all kinds of defense measures are perfect, and the military expenditure is less, only 50 million spirit stones are enough. The southern defense area of Mingyan is located in the hinterland below Guang'an Prefecture, and it is less likely to be exposed to war, so only 50 million spirit stones are needed. As for the western zone, everyone turned their attention to Chen Daoxian, and their eyes were full of meaningful colors. As far as I know, Chen Daoyu Shuanghu Island is located in a territory with few spiritual veins. If you choose to garrison there, you will have to spend a lot of spirit stones to build the spiritual veins, plus other consumption, so you need to invest a little more, just tentatively set 80 million spirit stones. Zhou Mingho said indifferently. Who knows that Chen Daoxuan's heart pounded when he heard this. Although this spiritual stone is military expenses, not his personal property. But as commander of the Western Defense Zone, he has the power to decide how to spend the money. In the end, the vast majority of this money must not slowly fall into the Chen family's pocket. If it weren't for the threat of the real person Shinju, how could the Guang'an family be willing to pay such a large amount of blood? Chen Daoxian really felt like he was getting rich from heaven. In his heart, his affection for Zhou Mingho, who insisted on letting him be the commander of the Western Defense Zone, soared. Compared to Yang Linyuan giving him a mouthful of a third-tier high-grade flying sword, Zhou Mingho gave him this great gift, which is called a pattern. However, the righteousness of this gift was so dignified that no monk in Guang'an Prefecture could say a word. Because before in the hall, it is not that no monks objected to Chen Daoxian as the commander of the Western Defense Zone. But he was defeated by Chen Daoxian directly. When he was this commander, he was recognized by the cultivators. Seeing Chen Daoxuan's grateful eyes, Zhou Mingho smiled and nodded to him. Smart people don't always need too many words. This eye contact alone means that the Chen family and his Chen Daoxian have accepted each other's favor. It can be said. This astronomical military spending is too timely. Although the Chen family now has a low-end magic tool business, but unfortunately the production capacity is still somewhat insufficient. Therefore, in a short period of time, it is difficult for the Chen family to obtain a large number of spirit stones. In addition, now that the cultivators of the Fuzi generation are gradually embarking on the path of immortality, the first-order spiritual veins of the Chen family have gradually been unable to meet the needs of the cultivators of the Chen family. The construction of second-order spiritual veins has also been put on the agenda. A second-order spiritual vein requires 1 million spiritual stones. After this spirit stone flower goes out, the spirit stone in the Chen family's clan library is estimated to have bottomed out. It even has to sell some of the spirit ore stored by the family. This time, with 80 million spirit stones, the Chen family can do much more. Although this spiritual stone is only military expenses and not Chen Daoxuan's personal property, he can use this spiritual stone for various investments. For example, the most basic spiritual investment. Lingmai investment is an investment that the world of immortals will never lose. The various spiritual veins built by the Yang family within a 10,000 li radius of Lingdai city have confirmed this truth. With this huge spiritual stone, Qin Daoxian also intends to implement the same plan. That is, with Shuanghu Island as the core, within a radius of 10,000 miles, to build spiritual veins. Of course, how to use the constructed spiritual veins depends on the actual situation. But compared with the Yang family, the Qin family has a huge advantage, that is, the ability to quickly process raw materials such as spirit ore and spirit medicine into products. This advantage has no semicolon in the entire Wangxinghai and even the entire immortal world. In Qin Daoxuan's eyes, this world is too powerful due to the power of monks. As a result, the monks were too superstitious about their own power and ignored the power of the machine. But he is different. As a transmigrator, he has a worldview and cognition that is completely different from this world. In other words, he knew the strengths and weaknesses of both worlds. What Qin Daoxian has to do is to use the strengths of the previous world to make up for the shortcomings of this world. The shortcomings of this world refer to far more than just productivity, including institutional, economic, and even cultural. Only, if you want to change all this, you need to build on your own strength, otherwise it will be empty talk. Just like the Zhao family, it disappeared in the dust of history with a little wave. Out of the main hall of the coalition headquarters, Qin Daoxian was floating when he walked. "Brother Qin." Behind him, Zhou Mubai's voice suddenly sounded. "Brother Zhou." When Qin Daoxian saw each other, it was the same as seeing his relatives. This feeling is not only because he and Zhou Mubai have a relationship of life and death, but also because of the huge sum of money that the Zhou family sent him just now, making him feel extremely cordial when he sees everyone in the Zhou family. Seeing Qin Daoxuan's appearance, Zhou Mubai shook his head with a smile, and said jokingly, "I didn't expect you to have such a wealthy side." Hear this. Qin Daoxian was immediately unhappy and said, "Brother Zhou, you were born in a big family, how do you know the suffering of our small monks?" Shaking his head, he said sternly, "Brother Zhou is going to attack Lotus Island, do you have any specific plans?" Hear this. Zhou Mubai pondered for a moment and said, "My plan is very simple, fortify the walls and clear the fields." Fortified walls and clear fields? Qin Daoxian couldn't help frowning. "Why, don't you attack Lotus Island directly?" Chapter 160, Heard. Zhou Mubai shook his head. Although the tide of corpses currently entrenched on Lotus Island is not that strong, the real Shinjue lurking in the dark is a big trouble, and we don't know if the real Shinjue has left behind. It is not a good idea to rashly attack Lotus Island. Qin Daoxian frowned and said, "But according to our last investigation, Lotus Island should have only 2 complete zombies of the Purple Palace and 3 zombies of the early Purple Palace." "It's not that simple," Zhou Mubai said as he walked. "Have you found it? The 3 zombies in the early stage of Zifu are all monks from the Wu and Zhao families." "You mean?" Qin Daoxian was suddenly shocked. "You must know that the Wu family and the Zhao family have no Zifu cultivators, that is to say, the 2 zombies in the early Zifu were promoted to the Zifu combat power after death. But how long have they been dead? Even the longest Wu family cultivator has only been dead for a few months, and the Zhao family cultivator has just died not long ago. In such a short period of time, the corpse of a base-building cultivator was forcibly refined into a Zifu zombie, which meant that the real person of Shinjue could mass-produce the battle power of Zifu. Think of this." Qin Daoxian only felt horrified. Qianyuan Jianzong wants the monks of Guang'an House to lead out the real person Shinju, which might be the rhythm that the whole monks of Guang'an House will be wiped out. For this situation, of course, the Guang'an House cultivator was unwilling to act as such an early bird. So the Zhou family came up with the idea of withdrawing all the monks from Lotus Island close to Guang'an House. Fortunately, the people living on these islands are scattered cultivators and children of small families, and there are very few spiritual veins. It's just that there are so many mortals. In order to transport these mortals, the Zhou family and the Yang family spent a lot of energy before transferring these people to the spiritual veins within 10,000 miles of Lingbei Island. After removing these mortals and low-level monks, Zhou Mubai will build several strong defense lines on Lianhu Island to several islands of Wu and Zhou families to prevent the corpse tide from spreading to Guang'an Prefecture. Thus, feeling the pressure exerted by Guang'an Prefecture, the corpse tide is likely to spread in the opposite direction of Guang'an Prefecture. The opposite direction from Lotus Island to Guang'an Mansion is the direction of Cangzhou Xiancheng. There is the clan of the first family in Cangzhou, the Yi family. This is also the real plan of the Guang'an Prefecture allied forces, to bring disaster to the east. As for whether the Yi family chose to block the corpse tide like Guang'an Mansion, or directly send monks to exterminate them, it had nothing to do with Guang'an Mansion. Zhou Mubai only needs to firmly hold the Guang'an Prefecture defense line. As for the suffering of the Yi family, Zhou Mubai didn't have time to applaud, so how could he send an army of monks to help them? Moreover, when the Yi family suffered, Zhou Mubai did not believe that the Qianyuan sword sect would remain indifferent. Hearing this explanation, Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai smiled at each other. The Yi family has too many enemies. The Zhou family has a grudge against the Yi family, the Chen family has a grudge against the Yi family, and the Yang family does the same. In Cangzhou, there may not be a few families that do not have grudges with the Yi family. The next days, Chen Daoxian selected the soldiers in the Western Defense Zone, and then returned to Sequoia Island with these soldiers. This time, in order to support the Western Defense Zone, the Zhou family has seconded 10 Spirit Void battleships. Now, on each of the Spirit Void battleships, there are 100 Foundation Establishment cultivators. Add up. There are 1,000 base-building cultivators stationed in the Western Defense Zone, and this does not include ordinary soldiers in the Qi refining period. There are nearly 100,000 monks in the entire Western Defense Zone. This is just the smallest of the zones. There was no way, in order to deal with the corpse tide and the real person, the monks in Guang'an had to unite. This is just the transfer of the monks. You know, in Guang'an Mansion, behind every cultivator, there is a large group of mortals serving him. Whether it is a family cultivator or a loose cultivator, this is basically the same. Behind the family monks, there are naturally an extremely large number of clansmen. And behind the loose cultivator, there are also a large number of slaves. Even these slaves will build cities and reproduce offspring under the protection of loose cultivators. After several generations of reproduction, the descendants of slaves generally no longer have the identity of slaves, and will automatically become ordinary civilians. Until then, these commoners may embark on the path of cultivation under the advice of loose cultivators. This is also the biggest source of Wan Xinghai's scattered cultivation. Family monks use blood as a link to reproduce offspring and cultivate monks. The advantage of doing this is that the clan is united and has a strong centripetal force. On the other hand, loose cultivators support themselves with ordinary civilians or slaves. It is possible that before his death, he will accept a few disciples and pass on the mantle. However, because the disciples do not have deep feelings, they often become passers-by in the future. If the loose cultivator who left the inheritance is powerful enough, such as the Tao lineage left by a certain Mahayana true immortal, it will be different. Such inheritance often eventually evolves into a sect, rather than disappearing after a generation or two. Of course, in the world of immortality, it is not surprising that sects have declined and eventually disappeared. For example, the Qianyuan sword sect is a line of Taoism left by a Mahayana true immortal, and then slowly developed to the point where it is today. There are also powerful people in the Shouxian family, and they are not weaker than the sect. Actually, in this world, no matter what kind of cultivation power it is, it has its own advantages and disadvantages. The advantage of the clan's cultivation force is that the clansmen are united enough, but the disadvantage is that it is inevitable that they will treasure themselves. And the cultivation force of the sect is much more tolerant than the family. As long as they are talented immortals within the sphere of influence, regardless of blood, they will be cultivated in the sect before a certain age. As such, in terms of the choice of disciples, they are inherently much broader than the family power. In addition, their inheritance is not weak. Generally speaking, the power of the sect in the Xiao Xian world is larger than that of the family. For example, Qianyuan Jianzong, such as Zhuaniangzong, such as Qinghui Taoist School, such as Qianji Temple, etc. However, the development of the sect power also has its drawbacks, that is, the system is not perfect, and after it can only grow to a certain extent, it has to rely on the family power to rule the territory under its command. This will inevitably lead to instability in governance. Don't look at Qianyuan Jianzong's extremely firm control of Wanxinghai, that is under the premise that its momentum is unparalleled for a while. When Qianyuan Jianzong shows a slight decline, the major families of Wanxinghai will inevitably violate its laws. Not only Wanxinghai, but also the clan forces under the other sects of Xianyunzhu are basically the same. Someone might say, that being the case, why not completely abolish the family system and bring the entire territory under the rule of the sect? It can only be said that this idea is very beautiful, but in fact it is impossible. This world is somewhat similar to the ancient society of Chen Daoxuan's previous life, but it is completely different internally. The biggest difference is that this world is a world where great power is attributed to itself. Humans are the most contradictory creatures. They may sacrifice their lives for their ideals and the forces they belong to, but they also have no bottom line for future generations. If Qianyuan Jianzong had ruled Wanxinghai, it would have completely wiped out all the families. What will happen next is almost predictable. Will the high-level officials in Qianyuan sword sect have descendants? Certainly. Do these high-level descendants choose to be placed in Qianyuan Jianzong, or driven out? Generally speaking, in order to maintain the long-term stability of the denomination seldom devotes resources to the high-ranking children. Because of this, after a few generations, the sect became a union of several families, and after several generations of fighting, it finally became a family. The senior sect officials will naturally not sit back and watch this happen. As a result, the descendants of the high-ranking sects often go out independently to open up a cultivator family. In this way, the problem returned to its original point, and the Shuxian family was born again. Therefore, it is not that the family system is not abolished, but that there is no way to cancel it. On the deck of the Spirit Void battleship, Chen Daoxian looked at Zhou Mucheng and Zhou Xiliang who were standing beside him, and said with a smile, "Uncle Zhou, Brother Xiliang, follow me to Sequoia Island this time, but you have to start all over again. Haha, I'm already satisfied that I can save my life. Besides, now that you are under your command, nephew, can you still treat my father and son badly?" Zhou Mucheng laughed. "That's not so," Chen Daoxian said with a smile, "but Brother Xiliang is estimated to be very uncomfortable with Sequoia Island." "Brother Chen, don't scare me," Zhou Xiliang had a sullen look on his face, "it won't really be a wild place. The wild places are not enough, but there is no place for fun." "That's a good feeling." Zhou Mucheng immediately applauded and laughed when he heard this. Hearing this, Zhou Xiliang immediately put on a bitter face. The crowd laughed a few times. Behind him, a cultivator in armor came over and cupped his hands. "Lord Commander, Sequoia Island is coming soon, heard." Chen Daoxian glanced at the red island below his eyes and nodded, "I see." "Yes." Lei Zhen cupped his hands and stepped back. This late foundation building loose cultivator named Lei Zhen seemed to be convinced by Chen Daoxian, and followed Chen Daoxian to Sequoia Island. Although there are as many as 1,000 base building cultivators here, but most of them are early stage foundation building cultivators, and even the middle stage foundation building cultivators are few in number. As for the later stage of foundation building, there were only Zhou Mucheng and Lei Zhen. These two, one is the 7th floor of the foundation building, and the other is the 8th floor of the foundation building. This strength is not too shabby compared to Zhou Mucheng in the Eastern Defense Zone. However, the main function of the Western Defense Zone is to patrol, and it does not require frontline combat. This power is more than enough for patrol. Even if it weren't for Chen Daoxian, the Zhou family would be able to handle this trivial matter, and there was no need to establish any Western Defense Zone. It's just that the Chen family's Shuanghu Island is here. In order to have a harmonious relationship between the two families in the future, the Zhou family will naturally plan their spheres of influence in advance to avoid conflicts between the two parties in the future. This Western defense area is not so much a defense area as it is the sphere of influence of the Qin family. In other words, now with Shuanghu Island as the center, the sea area with a radius of more than 10,000 miles will be the sphere of influence of the Qin family. Compared to the time when he could only traverse a few nearby islands, the Qin family's sphere of influence has expanded more than 100 times. It's just that the sphere of influence is now expanded, but the Qin family still faces a problem, that is, there is a shortage of manpower, and it is seriously insufficient. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.